IB Nation, welcome to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It's the first post-game show of the season. This is going to be a fun one, everybody, because Notre Dame just got done dominating Navy 42-3 to kick off the 2023 season. That's Vince D'Addario, that's Ryan Roberts, and we are here for our post-game show, guys. We're going to talk big picture about this win. We'll dive into the offense. We'll hand out game balls, talk turning points. We'll talk defense, and then we'll wrap things up. No mailbag today, as we always do post-game show. If you want to be heard, get some super chats in there. But, man, we're ready to rock and roll, fellas. First things first, this was a really dominant game for Notre Dame, and I really felt it was one where they established early what the game was going to look like. Offensively, it was going to be physicality. Defensively, it's like, hey, look, you can get your little 4s and 5s, but we're going to limit the big plays and keep you out of the end zone. I thought they did that. Special teams-wise, Ryan, until the game was out of hand, it was the do no harm that we talked about yesterday. But, fellas, just a really impressive performance. And one of the big questions we had coming into the season was, Vince, you and I saw it firsthand all fall camp. Physicality, flying around to the ball, toughness. Would that translate into what we see on Saturdays? And fellas, for at least the first game of the year, we definitely saw that. This team played hard, and they just physically beat Navy up in this game and both sides of the ball. That was what we said. Hey, guys, look, there's no build up. The offense is going to catch, has some building up to do. The defense has to get on the same page about things, but that should be who you are from game one. And in game one, fellas, that's exactly what we saw.
Well, I mean, look, we've been talking about the offense forever, right? I mean, you and I and Ryan, all of us, we've been really high on the offense. We've been excited about the offense. We had questions, Mark, about the defense going into spring. A lot of those questions were answered for us in spring and in fall and all of that. But then we just got to see it in a game today. I mean, the Notre Dame had – what did they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drives. They had 8 drives, and they had the opportunity to score on every single one of them except for the last one because it was the end of the game and they didn't even try. So, I mean, the one missed field goal is the only time they didn't score a touchdown. I mean, it was just precision offensively. And then defensively, you talked about the physicality. I mean, so physical. They were the dominant team on the field the entire game, start to finish, and it was awesome.
Well, I think that you saw identity today is like the biggest thing that I got out of this one, right? Like you talk about the physicality, that's a part of it, offensively, offensive line wise, defensively, just in general, as far as playing a physical brand of football, taking away the inside run. But I really think that, Brian, like we talked about this week, I wanted to see a little bit of charisma, a little bit of swagger, a little bit of just kind of that juice. And I feel like I got that from the start, man. Like there's something about Sam Hartman where you just kind of get a little bit of that swagger from him just by him being out there. And then you saw some of the young guys bringing juice. You saw defensively a lot of guys that were bringing great energy. I mean, there was great energy from the start of the game until the end of the game. So I really thought there was a identity that was at least shown to us a little bit this week. It has to improve, has to get better. Things need to get tightened up in certain areas, of course. But I think that I have I'm trying to think of it, guys. Like, I mean, at what point last year, what game did we know what this team was, right? I mean, like game 4, game 5?
Well, Ryan, not even, because every time we thought we had it figured out, North Carolina, BYU, okay, we've got this team figured out, right? And then Stanford happens. And exactly. Then, hey, Stanford, you think you get this team figured out. Clemson, and you think you have this team figured out. They're going to run on anybody, and then the next week they go for 66 against Navy. Right? Like, do we even really ever know what the identity of the team was? Like, I think they at least tried to get to the point where they were that way. But the point is, Ryan, to your point, and I think this is the thing, you can't just turn on that switch and, in the middle of the season, the whole, we're going to have swagger, we're going to be tough and physical. You don't just be like, oh, shoot, we lost to Stanford. Let's play with swagger. Let's be physical. Right. If that's not who you are, you don't just turn that switch on. And I think that's the thing that you're really getting to, Ryan, is they out-talented teams last year. We saw them finish better. There was obviously better coaching. They made some adjustments, but that team never really had that it factor, which is why they couldn't put UNLV away they needed to. The way they couldn't put Navy the way they needed to. They couldn't answer when they needed to against USC. But this team came out in game one, Ryan, and said, "This is who we are. We're going to be fast. We're going to play with fire. We're going to fly around the ball." And here's the thing, guys, on both sides of the ball, there were mistakes that need to get corrected. Sam Hartman had mistakes that are going to need to get corrected. The offensive line had mistakes that need to get corrected. The receivers, you had Audric putting the ball on the ground. You had late throws. You had missed, like kind of late stuns. You had on the defensive side, you had guys missing tackles. There was a lot of things on film to say, let's correct this stuff. But because they flew around, because they play with fire, because they were physical, they were able to do what you're supposed to do against Navy, which is out-talent them. And that may seem like oh, yeah, of course. But they don't often do that. And so to see that says, hey, look, you're going to get that other stuff cleaned up as you get deeper and deeper into the season. But what we saw from this football team, guys, is we know who we are. And we're going to come out in game one and establish that and show all of you who we are. We'll clean up the technical stuff, man. But Vince, you can't. I wonder, you can't turn this switch on and off, and that's just who this team is. And I'm pointing to you, Vince, because you and I got the chance to see this. Ryan got in the rest of the fans. This is the first time y'all got to see that. This is exactly what we were talking about in fall camp. This team battles. They play hard. And the big question was, this offensive line's not looking good. Is it, well, now we got a chance to see it. Hey, are the linebackers going to be really improved? Well, now we got a chance to see it. And I think that's something that I liked. And I'll tell you something else. They played a lot of people today. Even before the game was in doubt, they played a lot of people on both sides of the ball. I mean, every single scholarship running back got a touch before the first half was over, right? Yeah. You bench your starting running back after a first quarter fumble, and it's like nobody noticed because you just keep rolling. You had a lot of guys playing on defense, a lot of guys playing on offense, and today they showed off the other thing, guys. We talked about, Vince. You and I talked about this a lot, especially in practice. This team is deep, and today you got a chance to see that in this football game. It's just how deep this team is, and it's not like look how talented the backups are when it was 42-3. No, we saw that in the first half, Vince.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it was a clinic offensively is really what it was. And I'll elaborate more when I get to give out my offensive game ball, but it was a clinic offensively. And it was everything that I hoped I would see with a couple. But look, here, at the bottom line, I expected more mistakes, if I'm being honest. It's game one. You are in a foreign country. The time change is crazy. Like I expected way more mistakes, to be honest with you, on both sides of the ball. And this was one of the more put together teams that I remember in a game one in quite a while, to be honest with you. And that actually, look, I know what the competition was, and Notre Dame's not going to get a lot of, praise for putting it on Navy. They're not going to, right?
Nor should they, right?
Absolutely. Not nationally. I'm not even asking for that. But just looking at this team from a game one perspective, from like a coaching perspective, there's a bunch of stuff to clean up. But this team just looked more put together than I can remember in the recent past.
Ryan, I would say it's probably since week one of 2015 that we saw a team this dominant. Like they've had some good wins, right? Like they had a really great win at the beginning of the season against Michigan in 2018. That was a good Michigan team. Good 35-17 road win to kick off the 2019 season at Louisville. We've seen some good wins. 2017, they were dominant over Temple. I would say maybe that might be the last time, that 2017 season. And I think that might be the comparison that I would want to make to this team, guys, is because that team in 2017 in week one, Ryan, established its identity. Because you talked about that earlier. You saw in game one against Temple who Notre Dame was going to be that year. We're going to run it down your throat and fly around on defense, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And today, I felt this team had a similar approach, which is we are going to push you around. We're going to bully you. And oh, by the way, we can run. And this is what we've been saying all season is this is what we think this team has a chance to be. Can they translate it into practice, Ryan? And for today, I think they did.
I really think they did, because the reason I said the thing about identity earlier is because we know that when players are comfortable and they believe in something, they play faster, they play harder, they play more physically. Like, those things all come when you're comfortable. Last year, and again, first year under a new head coach, there were games where, because it wasn't sustainable last year, right? We talked about the running game a couple days ago, where you would run for 260 plus against Clemson, run against nothing against USC. Like, it didn't make any sense logistically, because Clemson is obviously a better defense than USC. Why does that happen? It happens because there wasn't an identity last year, right? They just leaned into one part of their game that they were pretty good at, running the football. That was it. But there wasn't an offensive identity. There wasn't a team identity last year, in my opinion. I believe, and this is one game impulse, right, is that after watching them play against Navy, after what we have all heard this offseason about the swagger they're showing in practice, you guys have told me multiple times about, like, Jason Anye just talking smack to everyone, right? Well, we saw that today. He stood a dude up at the line of scrimmage, made a tackle, and he's talking trash. And I'm like, I love that stuff, man. That's fantastic. I think that this team is much more sure of themselves, which is going to make them play faster. It's going to make them play harder. And I think we got a great glimpse into what this team at least is made out of today. How good is it going to be? We'll see. There's a weekly attrition that happens. There's a weekly understanding of, technically we need to get better here. Philosophically, we need to get better here. We need to establish more consistency. But I really think that you got a glimpse to what this team wants to be today, which I think is the biggest thing that I took from it.
Last big picture observation, fellas, before we move on to the Notre Dame offense. I think that there were two big noticeable differences between this game and last game. And this is in no means a shot at Drew Pine or anybody else. But when you've got a sixth-year senior who's done what Sam Hartman has done, and Marcus Freeman talked about this after the game, you saw it. There was a calming presence when he was in the game. And even when he's kind of running around, it just looked calm. There's just no stress, no pressure. You give up a late pressure. Pat Coogan doesn't react to a late blitz and a delayed blitz, and he doesn't get it. But Sam Hartman just stays in there, lets it go, and takes the shot, right? Like, there just was a poise to it. And then the other one is having J.D. Bertrand on defense. How many times did we see him, as soon as he saw something, just all of a sudden he would make a motion and the entire defense would move in sync to adjust and get lined up correctly? I think having those two guys on both sides of the ball was a really big factor in this game, compared to, because for the most part, guys, this is pretty much the same team we saw against Navy, minus Michael Mayer and Audric Estime, and Isaiah Foskey and some guys like that. But getting Sam and to me, JD were big parts of this game. There's no doubt about it. So let's start with the offense, fellas. We had both sides did well, and Vince, we joke about this. You and I are offensive guys, so we're always going to talk about the offense first. But Ryan is the defensive guy. But look, guys, today the story of the day was the offense. We wonder, like, what are they really going to look like in week one? Or how, is it going to take some time to get going? And I would even say, guys, it did take them a little bit to get going. They were kind of bullied Navy around. They didn't necessarily like wow, like that first series, but they just went kind of like, okay, right down the field. There you go. But I thought the biggest question that we would have, really that we had, guys, was just, what are we going to see from Jared Parker? And I felt, Ryan, and you and I talked about this. This is going to be a great first test for Jared Parker. And because we know who Brian Newberry is. We know the job he has done in the past. 2 of the last 4 years, Navy's had a top 10 rush defense. We know what they did last year, Notre Dame. Navy lost 8 games last year. 5 of them were by a touchdown or less. They lost games giving up like 13 points, 17 points, 20 points. Like, this wasn't a defense that just got worked last year. They weren't a very good football team. They'll give up 24 points a game last year, fellas. And they came out in this game, guys, and just coached circles around Navy's defensive staff. That was the biggest thing for me. And one of the keys to victory, Ryan, was beating the blitz. Yep. And I thought, and we'll start this off, one of the things we're going to talk about is turning points in games. And I actually thought the turning point in this game happened on series number 1. Notre Dame got to a 3rd and 10 and a 3rd and 12 on the first series. And Ryan pointed out, as we were talking before, Notre Dame did not fail to convert a 3rd down until it was 35-0 before the missed field goal. But they got into a 3rd and 10. in the 3rd and 12, and then both times they knew it looked like they knew exactly what Navy was going to bring, and they called a play to beat it. The first time on 3rd and 10, they called a quick inside zone that just got right inside of the outside blitz. They knew Navy was going to bring an edge pressure against that look. They spread out formationally and just ran right up in the middle of it and converted first down.
It's a great call.
Next time, about what I think it was like 3 plays later, I got the chart right here. I think, Vince, it was like that very next 3rd down. So, yes, it was about 3 plays later. You run a first down on 3rd and 2. Mitchell Evans gets called for a hold, which was a silly hold. Just bad technique on that play. And so 3rd and 12, you get 3 plays later, you're in that situation again, and they called a quick slide screen where they just got Audric Estime out. It technically wasn't a screen because he actually, I think, caught the ball past the line of scrimmage, but the receivers didn't start blocking until he caught the ball. But you could tell after their release that they were blocking.
Did that flag scare you for a second, though? I was like, oh, no, they didn't start blocking too early, did they?
Yeah. Well, I thought they were going to say that they did. Yeah. But he catches that ball, and he just runs for 22 yards. The receivers turn around, start blocking. Those 2 plays were such great examples of they had an answer for Navy's pressures, and they just stayed ahead of Navy the whole game. They had quick look screens, tunnel screens, play action throws. They'd max pro on first down, and they just dominated the Navy pressures, guys. I thought that, to me, when you have those back-to-back 3rd down conversions, they basically said to Navy, what you did to us last year, fellas, that's not going to work because we've got answers for you. And we've got a lot of different answers for you. And I just thought that, to me, once that statement was made, fellas, Navy had nothing they could do. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden, that's Notre Dame starts leaning on Navy after that, because now they're like, okay, hold on a second. We can't keep doing this because they're just going to gash us. Then they started leaning on them. I thought that, to me, was an impressive part of this game. And Navy was never able to counterpunch, Ryan. That was the big thing that you and I talked about. You mentioned this especially yesterday, was how would you be able to adjust once Navy adjusts? But the great thing is, Ryan, Parker and the staff never gave Navy a chance to adjust because they kept coming with different stuff. Almost every other series, they kept staying ahead of Navy. And I thought that was as good of an offensive game plan against a team like this that I've seen in a very long time.
The Navy defensive coaching staff was shook the whole game. I mean, they were uncomfortable. I mean, they were, because Jared Parker had answers in this game, Ryan. Like, ultimately, Jared Parker, for Notre Dame fans and from the national perspective, he's going to be judged about what he looks like when he coaches against Ohio State and the game plans there and the Clemsons of the world. But we could just look to this game last year where Tommy and the offense got off to a great start in the first half. But then as soon as Navy threw something different at them, they had an incredibly difficult time to adjust. And yes, Sam Hartman versus Drew Pine, we can have the conversation. Definitely makes things easier. There's no doubt. But like that slide screen or whatever you want to call it, it's an incredible call, man. He had that ready. And I think that the one thing about Jared Parker for me was, you talk about how comfortable guys are going to look on the field. I thought he looked comfortable, just incredibly comfortable throughout the entirety of that game, calling it. And the blitz beaters were a part of that, man. Like, he was ahead of the game. Forget about ahead of the change. He was ahead of the game the entire game. So, yes, first test for Jared Parker, aced it, in my opinion. He aced it. Now, in 2 weeks against NC State, that's a different challenge, right? Sure. We got to see what it looks like from there. But from the first day of calling an offense fully that is his, Jared Parker looked very good in his first opportunity.
Yeah. Vince, I want to give you some numbers. This is Notre Dame's, according to my charting, I may be off by a yard or two, but this is what they kind of had on the play-by-play during the game. This is what Notre Dame did on first down in the first half against Navy. 10, 19, 10, 5, 6, 7, touchdown. 13, 9, under that they had the underthrown pass to Merriweather that should have been a touchdown if he throws the ball either on a line like Ryan said before we got started or sooner. And then a 19-yard touchdown on the next first down to Jerry Price. 19 yards, 11 yards. Their third series, they never had a second down. They went 19 yards on first down, 11 yards on first down, 13 yards on first down, 35-yard touchdown on first down. Never got to a second down. Series number 4, Vince, 20 yards on first down, 2 yards on first down, 7 yards on first down, clocked a throw on first down, so clock play, and then incomplete pass. That's what Notre Dame did in the first half on first down. One of the keys to victory, Vince, was dominate early in the game. And in order to stay ahead of the blitzes, like Ryan said, you've got to have a great first down plan. And that was just a work of art on first down in the first half, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, and look, a lot of those first downs that you were talking about gave them another first down. But even when it didn't, it was second and short. I mean, and when you're second and short, I mean, as a play caller, and when I was a play caller, second and short, your entire playbook is available to you. I mean, there's literally nothing you can do, because then you're pretty darn confident that you can pick up third and short. So when you pick up 6-7 yards on first down, it's like, okay, what do you want to do? You know what I mean? And that's basic. Jared Parker was playing with house money the entire game, but that's because of his preparation and because of the offensive staff's preparation, because they knew what they wanted to do on first down, and that made the rest of it cake, because he could call whatever he wanted and be successful. And so when you're constantly in second and long and third and long, that changes the dynamic. It changes what you want to do. And they knew that they were going to have blitz beaters. They knew that they were going to have to be successful on first down, and they were. And just like Ryan said, I mean, look, it's one game, but that's all we have.
Right.
So that's the sample size.
But that's the sample size. So we have to grade the sample size, right? The sample size says ace. I mean, it was an A+ effort by Jared Parker and his staff.
Test. Right.
Right. Now there's 11, 12, 13, 14 more to go.
We all get that, right? Like we all get that. I mean, you can only, this is Marcus Freeman's mantra. You can only control what's in front of you right now.
Exactly.
Right? And the first test is they couldn't beat NC State or Ohio State or USC or Clemson today. They can only beat Navy. Yep. And they did exactly that. Here's something else that stood out today, guys, is we've been saying all fall camp, chill out about the offense and freaking out about the offense, chill out about, whatever people are saying about this guy or that guy. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And we saw that today, guys. This team, one thing that we've been talking a lot about is this team has tons of weapons. And we saw that today. Running back, we've talked about how good this running back room is. We've been hyping up this running back all fall camp, and you saw that today. Audric looks great to start the game off. He's just running dudes over, trucking dudes. He breaks that run free, keeps the ball on the inside arm. Vince, that's my biggest pet peeve on the planet. And of course, what happens? It was a wet field. Yeah, this is exactly. But if you have the ball on the outside arm, it doesn't matter. They knock it out. Notre Dame catches a little bit of a break. Ball goes out of bounds, and they're able to keep it going. He doesn't touch the ball the rest of the first half. Doesn't touch the ball one time, I believe, the rest of the first half. Statement made by and I don't know that he played the rest of the first half, guys. I'd have to go back and look. But, statement made by the Notre Dame coaching staffs. Can't do that, right? You can't do that. So then what happens? They just bring in Jadarian Price, and he goes for 19 yards and a touchdown on his first career carry. They bring in Jeremiah Love. He goes for 12 yards on his first career carry. You know what I mean? And then they bring in Jabron Payne, and he didn't have the big runs the other guys did, but he ran hard. The third down conversion he got hit at the line of scrimmage, bounce off, and then picks up the first down.
He was efficient. He was an incredibly efficient runner today, Jabron Payne.
And then they had Devin Ford in there in the 2-minute drill at the end. And he has a little nice completion on a check down where he catches it and just veteran play. Look, I gotta be pretty. I just gotta find my way to the first down sticks, and he did that. So the running backs were excellent today. The talent there is excellent today. We saw Jaden Thomas step up. Chris Tyree looked good. Jaden Greathouse, I'm LOLing at him being ranked as a 3-star by 247. You know what I mean? Because this isn't a surprising
by ESPN,
right? This isn't a surprising performance, guys. Anyone that's seen this kid play in high school or whatever, Ryan's been talking about this kid from the day that he first got offered at Notre Dame. It was like the first kid Ryan got excited about when he got hired was Jaden Greathouse, because that offer came pretty soon after that. And it was one guy after another. It just didn't matter who you put in the game. The weapons.
Deion Colsey too, man.
Well, and that was that was going to be the thing. That's what was going to go there. The weapons they had was really impressive. But I think sometimes you have to start just telling yourself, I just got a feeling that Deion Colsey's just a gamer. He's just never going to look good in practice.
Yeah.
I mean, Vince, that's not the kid you and I saw in practice.
No.
And the screen was impressive and all that, but it was the two diving. This is a kid that's dropped more passes in practice than anybody on the team during fall camp. But he makes two great, not accurate throws from Hartman. He makes great catches on. And then, of course, he shows off in the touchdown. Just, nobody was dominant at receiver, not even Jaden Greathouse. I mean, he had that one great play. That the next touchdown was more about just being savvy, just getting free on a scramble.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody was like, oh, wow, what a brilliant, amazing performance. It's just they all did something. Right. And if there's a better ball by Sam Hartman on the first series, Tobias has a touchdown.
Right.
You know, he smoked a dude. So, I mean, and 0 catches to the tight ends was probably the only thing that surprised me from today's performance. But it's just kind of like, well, Matt Salerno that ran a great snag route, getting inside the flat, that hook curl guy. Did you guys see that? Where that guy kind of stops and Matt gets inside of him and gets free. Man, the weapons that they have on offense. Again, for this performance against this team, that was fun to watch, man.
Well, they were playing a lot of players a lot of younger players when it mattered too.
Yes,
which is
this
big,
was all
right?
first half stuff, guys.
Yeah. You're talking about Jaden Greathouse, right? But Rico Flores didn't have a catch until the end when Angeli came in, but Rico Flores was out there early in that football game. Like he was out there, guys, right? So I just thought it was incredible to see. Again, not throwing shots at the previous staff, but there's been some years where we're just not going to see that many freshmen on the field. You're just not going to see it, and you saw it today early in this game.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, can I say this too, Vince, before I kick it to you? I think they've also upgraded the quality of the freshmen that they got too, meaning not just talented guys, but talented guys that are more ready to play right now. I think that factors into it as well, because Jaden Greathouse is a kid that, Ryan, you and I have been talking about for a while is going to be ready to play. But Vince, I mean, yes,
this staff is shopping down a different aisle, fellas. Yeah, shopping down a different aisle.
One that actually has big time players on it. Go ahead.
Well,
Vince.
they were shopping down the hamburger aisle. Now they're shopping down the steak aisle. That's the difference. But here's the deal with what today was. And if you look, I will grant the premise. Let's just say that Tobias Merriweather had a bad game. I'm not even convinced that's the case.
I'm just bad. Yeah.
I'm granting the premise for this talk. Everybody else stepped up. Like it shows the depth of this team. Like in the past, if Notre Dame's 1 or 2 receiver didn't have a good game, say goodbye to the passing game. You know what I mean? Like they better start hitting the tight ends a bunch. And so, I mean, you just rattled off all the guys that had catches in big moments, right? And you can include the running backs in some of that too. Like this team is deep, and they've got a signal caller that's going to throw to whoever's open. It does, if one guy has a bad game, these other guys are going to step up. The depth of this offense is better than we've seen in a really long time, and this coaching staff realizes it. That's why those guys were on the field. I mean, I'm okay with somebody having a bad game. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's fine.
You want to go there, right? But that's part of football. He's going to have a good game. Somebody else is going to have an off game. That's part of the deal. I want to say something. Go ahead, Ryan.
Brian, can I just say real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Also, a great note as far as like to make your point of like how many guys played is I believe the leading receiver as far as receptions was Jaden Thomas with 4, but 9 players I believe caught a pass in this football game, right? So they were feeding their guys today, and it wasn't just in garbage time. Like it was. Guys were playing when the game mattered.
And 6 guys had a carry in the game as well, not including the quarterback. I want to talk. I wanted to start with this at the beginning, guys, but I just got fired up about the skill players. But the offensive line at the beginning of the game set the tone for me. I was really impressed by the play of the offensive line. I thought Blake Fisher. We had a question about how physical would he be. I'm watching him, Ryan, today blow dudes off the ball in this game. I thought Rocco and Blake were outstanding on the right side together in the run game. Rocco was physical. He's moving his feet. There's a couple plays where he took an inside defensive lineman and drove him 5-6 yards to the other side, 4 yards downfield, and just drove him out of the play. I thought Pat Coogan had some good movement. He was the least effective from a movement standpoint, but he did his job. He had a nice block on the touchdown run to Jadarian Price. He did let that one backer get through, but I thought other than that, he played solid. Joe Alt was outstanding, and I thought Zeke played a great game. As a unit, they played outstanding. Rushed for 191 yards in this game, fellas. That includes getting a -2 at the very end of the game on that jet sweep that got dropped against a Navy team that, as I mentioned before, fellas, and it has finished in the top 10 in rush defense in 2 of the last 4 years, including last year, where they only gave up 88 38.9 yards per game. Notre Dame had that beat by halftime. Notre Dame rushed for 66 yards against Navy last year. They had almost 90 at halftime. This is a rush defense, Ryan, that you and I talked about in our breakdown, returned all but one player from its front seven from last year. So it's the same guys that you were playing against last year. The last 5 games of the year last year, Navy gave up 20 yards to Temple, 55 to Cincinnati, 66 to Notre Dame, 84 to UCF, and 125 to Army. The highest yards per carry in the last 5 games of the year last year was UCF at 3.5.
Yep.
Notre Dame had 191 yards today on 32 carries. Like, that was a 6.0 yards per carry, and the longest run was only 21 yards. That was it. I mean, and even like when they would get contact, Vince, you saw this, when they would get contact on a running back at the line of scrimmage, they were still engaged with the Notre Dame blocker, and it just allowed Notre Dame's backs to just bounce off of them.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're kind of getting, you did it, right? They kind of got a weak arm on him because you're still getting blocked by the Notre Dame blocker. I don't know that I've seen it's not since 2017 have we seen a Notre Dame off. And again, that was a different performance. They ran for like 400 yards in the opener against Temple, right? Like, that's a different animal. But I haven't seen a Notre Dame offensive line play this well in game one since 2017. And when you consider they did it against a team whose entire philosophy is built on don't let them run. And you know what I also liked, guys, too, Vince? Notre Dame came out and said, we're not going to use the pass to set up the run. We're freaking Notre Dame. They went run, RPO pass, run, RPO bubble, run, slide screen because they had a 3rd and 2 run called back because of a hold, run, RPO out, run, touchdown. They just said, dude, guys, we're Notre Dame. We're going to come out and establish ourselves early against you running the football. I thought that tells me something about Jared Parker and this staff's confidence in that line, which, Vince, from what you and I saw in fall camp, we had questions about it.
Oh, yeah.
But this staff said, nope, we're leaning on these guys right now.
Yeah.
And they rewarded them for it. The way that line played in week 1, Vince, was just outstanding.
Well, I mean, you talk about wanting to have an identity. The Notre Dame staff, Marcus Freeman specifically, knows what he wants his team to be. He knows what he wants the identity of Notre Dame to be. And it was on full display, right? I mean, they ran it down Navy's throat, right? And it wasn't big plays. It was just boom, 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 boom. And then when they try to take something away, they've got a counter to it. And they just continue to move the ball down the field. And then when they wanted to throw the ball, I mean, Sam Hartman could have set up a picnic blanket a couple of times and had a picnic before he was able to throw the football. I mean, he had plenty of time to throw. And even when there was some pressure, his feet in the pocket, Brian. And I know that teams that have good quarterbacks are probably used to this sort of thing. But
it's a rare thing. It's rare. Yeah.
His movement in the pocket was just graceful. Okay. His eyes are always downfield. He's not bailing and trying to run the ball when he thinks he can't be in the pocket anymore. He's slide stepping. He's stepping up. He's going to the side. That second touchdown to Greathouse where he breaks the pocket. First, he moved around a little bit. He steps up. He breaks the pocket. Eyes are always downfield. And then just throws a dart to Greathouse, who I realized was wide open. But if it's not on a line, Navy guys have a chance to break on that because there was a Navy defender not that far away from him. So,
and if he doesn't keep his eyes up, that's the other thing, Vince.
Exactly. And so just in the past, there's just been so much of, oh crap, I got to tuck it and go, when there's been guys open and things of that nature. So just his movement in the pocket, even when things broke down up front, and broke down is a big word. That's not, there was like one guy that he might have to make miss
like
or whatever.
Free rusher.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He stayed in the pocket and let the play progress. Like I literally went like this. Like it just felt like it was just so nice. Sat back in my chair. I was like, oh, that's nice to see. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian, this is what we were talking about the other day, though. You remember the conversation of like someone was talking about, Sam Hartman's as athletic as Ian Book. And my conversation is he's not as fast as Ian Book,
No.
but he's a great pocket mover. Like he's
Right.
a navigator. That's what the
He's
difference,
not the
right?
athlete Ian was.
Yeah,
He's not.
He's not
but
going to
a
run.
better-
He's not going to go to
his-
the combine and run 4.5.
No.
but he has
8 or
better
whatever,
pocket
like
presence.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Like and like Jack Cohn, Ryan just wrote.
Yeah.
Like Jack Cohn understood the pocket, but he
Yeah.
just didn't have the athleticism to
Sure.
avoid some of
Springy.
those things. He just
Right.
physically couldn't do it. Sam could.
Exactly. Yeah. And the couple times that there was a free rusher, you saw Sam obviously utilize that. But the point is that there wasn't a ton of pressure on Sam today for the most part. And
Right.
the offensive line really handled the run game. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say it like this. Joe Alt was his typical self. He was just really good. Like that's just what you should expect for Joe Alt. Blake Fisher was very good. I thought Zeke Corral also had a good football game. Pat Coogan was rock solid. And honestly, guys, like if you ask me who was at times the most dominant offensive lineman during the game, I would say Rocco Spindler. Like he was dominant at times. Like he was moving the line of scrimmage in the offense's favor all day. I mean, really was. And he didn't make any mistakes in the passing game where you saw, someone slip by him or a free rusher or anything. Like Rocco played a great first game in his first start for Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, it was just everywhere. They just had, again, I don't know that I saw anyone today, even Sam Hartman, just have like this, oh my gosh, that was like the greatest quarterback performance. It just did his job and did it at a high level, right? And we just saw a lot of that. And for that to happen in the opener, in a game where your players 2 days before had to travel across an entire ocean to get to another continent with a 5 hours ahead of you time zone. And it's just like, oh, we got this. We're good. Very impressive to see how well the staff got them put together. And I think part of the credit belongs to the defense because of how much they went at the offense all fall camp and just got in their heads and went after them the way that they did. So those are the things that you like to see, fellas. And they did it without their tight ends catching a single pass. I don't think the tight ends were even targeted once in this game. I mean, and they ran a lot of 12 personnel.
A lot, especially in the second half.
Yeah.
There was a ton of 12 personnel.
They were 12 and 11 a lot early.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I thought the tight ends did a good job in the run game, though. I know there was
Mitchell's
one hold
exception
on Mitchell when they popped it outside, but for the most part, I thought him and Stace did a really nice job in the run game as well. I thought they got some movement too, which was nice.
Well, and we saw them run inside zone. We saw them run duo. We saw them run counter. They didn't really have to go up really a whole lot beyond that, guys. I mean, there was a couple times I couldn't tell, are they running mid zone here? I thought they might have like run mid zone a couple times, Ryan, because I thought it might have been duo, but then I saw everybody was stepping to the call, so I thought maybe they might have run mid zone a couple times. Those are different things that we saw as well. So I thought they did mix up the run game well. I thought they used the tight ends effectively. They ran well out of 11 personnel also. Yeah. We saw the RPO game. Guys, I think they might have actually, the first drive I said RPO. I think the first pass to Jaden Thomas might have been actually a designed pass. I'm going to go back and look at that one. But a lot of their stuff early with throwing the football, guys, were on RPOs. A lot of those like quick outs and stuff. Those were off RPOs. And so we saw them mix that up really well in this game. I was really impressed with kind of how they mix things up. And we saw first play of the game, they're in 12 personnel, second play of the game, they went to 11. And on that pass to Jaden Thomas on that second play, and like I said, I just went back and looked, it was a design pass. It was a drop back pass. They had Chris Tyree open on a crossing route also, where he'd have had one guy to miss and he maybe picks up 10, 12 yards. But Sam went with the read he was supposed to. I mean, that's based on the coverage. He went to the read he was supposed to. But other than that, I mean, we saw the RPO played a big role in the run game in the pass game as well today. So just really efficient, right? So Ryan, what we did not see today, we did not see a super, super explosive offense, right? We saw longest gain was like 35 yards. Yep. So we didn't see that, but we saw a really efficient offense, a lot of 15s, a lot of 10+ runs in this game. Yep. The bigger stuff will come, but we saw a really efficient offense today. I mean, I think Sean Stiers pointed this out on Twitter at one point in time in the game. They had like the number of 10+ yard runs they had in this game was really impressive to me. So I thought that was something. That was something to watch.
And there wasn't many negative plays. Like I think there was maybe
Right.
one or two negative runs. There was no sacks. There were no interceptions, no turnovers. Like it was just a really clean football game.
Yeah.
What Notre Dame showed today is that they have the athletes that if you don't shoot yourself in the foot and don't kill yourself, you're going to make some plays and you're going to create some first downs and you're going to scores a good amount of points. Like that's what I got out of it. Is that I think this was the biggest testament of anything, Brian. It's funny. Someone texted me during the game and was like, oh, where did Notre Dame get these wide receivers from? And I'm like, oh, they've had a few of them for a couple years. It's just,
Right.
haven't been able to really showcase it until now. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that Notre Dame has more than enough talent that as long as they aren't killing themselves and doing negatives, that they're going to I can't say that word. They're going to move the football consistently. Yeah. They're going to move the football.
The big plays will come.
Circulate the ball down the field.
Yeah.
The big plays will come. I honestly was surprised how much they did just kind of go down the field. But again, that one drive that I was talking about, guys, was an example of what I'm talking about. Is they didn't rip off any like 50-yard gains and a bunch of those, but that third touchdown drive, they get the ball at their own 21-yard line, so they're 79 yards away from the end zone. They scored in 4 plays.
Right.
It was 19 yards on a tunnel screen to Jaden Greathouse, another blitz beater. They ran inside zone to Jeremiah Love, his first career carry, runs over a dude and picks up 11 or 12 yards. They throw a quick out to Deion Colsey. He catches it for 0 yards and a really nice back shoulder catch because Sam, I thought, threw it a tad late, and Deion had to really whip around and turn his back to the ball to catch it. And then, because if Deion keeps running, he runs out of bounds. He flips his hips around, makes the catch, goes out of bounds after he makes the catch, got 13 yards on that, and then the very next play, they go 35 for a touchdown to Jaden Greathouse. I mean, it wasn't explosive like we need to see more of as the season goes on, but the efficiency from what we saw was really impressive. And just a lot of those 10 to 12s to 15s that we saw all game just allowed them to keep moving. I mean, you look at their 4th touchdown drive, they went 75 yards. Nope, that was the defense. I'm sorry. They went 80 yards, and it was 20-yard completion to Chris Tyree on an end cut, 2-yard gain, 9-yard gain, 7-yard gain on a tunnel, 0-yard gain. Greathouse catches an option route for 13, spike the ball, get the pass interference by Tyree. Because Tyree had 3 for 36, but he also drew that pass interference. Oh, that was the one critique I had of Chris in this game. He needs to bend that route inside more. If he bends that route inside more, that guy can't get to the ball. Maybe he still gets interfered with, but he might have a shot to catch that ball there. That's the kind of thing you want to see is when you're running that vertical and that safety's high on you, you need to bend that thing inside a little bit. I did want to see that, but you get a 15-yard penalty, incompletion, and then a 14-yard touchdown. I mean, we just saw this the whole game, fellas. We just saw the first touchdown of the second half. They got to 2 second downs. That's it. 6-play touchdown drive. They went for 11, 7, 10, 11, 4, 20-yard touchdown. I mean, it was a thing of beauty, fellas. Just the efficiency we saw from this game was outstanding. It really was.
I mean, they didn't need to take shots.
That you were talking about was dime, by the way. Sorry, Vince.
Right.
Cut you off.
And that's. I mean, I actually thought that was kind of going downfield. It wasn't a bomb, but it was behind the defense.
No, it was a deep shot. I mean, they threw a couple. What I'm saying is, like, Vince, it's like we talked about, like the 40+ yard gains.
Oh,
we didn't see a lot of those. Like that was the whole point.
They didn't need to. Yeah,
I did an article a week or so ago where I talked about when you look at where Notre Dame is ranked on those big explosives, the 40 pluses, compared to teams that have been in the playoffs every year. They're way behind. But my point I'm getting to is they didn't need to today. They're going to need to eventually. But these things lead to that. Is my point. So now that Notre Dame has established, hey, we can run the football. We will RPO you to death. We're going to work the intermediate zones. Now, all of a sudden, teams come up, and we're going to hit those shots.
Right.
So, you run a play action pass like they ran to Tobias, the one that got in the throw, and you run that about 20 yards further out. Sam lets it go a little bit further, touchdown.
Right.
I mean, those things are going to come. The shot to Greathouse was my dad said, I thought he got the ball out a little late to Greathouse. And I said, yeah, I think he might have, but I think it was more about that was his 3rd read. He came back to Greathouse on that throw is what I saw. I have to go back and watch it again, but it looked live like he went back to Greathouse. That wasn't his initial read. So I just, again, was impressed with what we saw. But you got to have time to do that, fellas. And whatever you want to say about Drew Pine, he didn't have time to make that kind of read last year in the second half.
Right. Right.
He never had the time to do that. He
Which
had
was
sacked
partly
5 times in the second
coaching
half.
and
Right.
other things. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But he got sacked 5 times last year in the second half alone.
Yep.
0 sacks. Notre Dame allowed 0 sacks to Navy today. That was another big part of this game, fellas. I mean, there's and the couple pressures they had were not really. They had the one pressure they gave up. I thought the other pressures were primarily Navy bringing more than they could block, and Notre Dame had to manipulate off of it. And we talked a lot about this in the pregame show, Ryan. Sometimes they're going to bring more than you can block, either more from a side or more overall. You've got to know what to do with the ball to get there. And Vince, I thought that was a big part of what Sam Hartman did today. Is you alluded to it earlier, when there was pressure or things didn't necessarily go as planned with the initial read, he knew exactly what to do. And
he accounted for it.
Yeah.
Like as the quarterback, and this is something that quarterbacks get taught early on, right? Sometimes you have to account for the extra man, whether that means, throwing to the hot read, stepping, whatever the case may be. You have to account for that guy. He did it all day. I mean, all day long, he accounted for the extra guy and did it with ease. And he did it like a 60-year senior, frankly, with a ton of experience under his belt.
Navy last year had 33 sacks. They only failed to get a sack in one game last year. That was game 6 against SMU. They had 16 sacks in the last 5 games of the year, including 5 against Notre Dame and UCF in back-to-back games. So, again, very, very good job by the Notre Dame offensive line.
Yeah.
Let's move over to the defense, fellas, because this was a little bit more of an interesting tale. I actually liked what I saw from the defense today, it for the most part. I thought the first thing is, Ryan, you and I talked about this. Greer Martini talked about this, I believe. Best thing you got to do to stop an option team is to take away the fullback. And I think Navy had a fullback dive, I believe, on the first series that went for like 5 or 6 yards. Outside of that, that pretty much shut the fullback down. Mm-hmm. Now, Fofana, who had 15 carries this year, he had 15 carries against Notre Dame last year. Last year, he went for 133 yards against Notre Dame. This year, he went for 56. And most of those yards actually were on outside runs. He got pitched to a couple times. They were running power read in this game, and that was something that I was impressed with, guys, is they were doing stuff on film that I didn't really see them do at Kennesaw State. Like they were going power read. They ran like split back looks where they were diving to one side and then pitching to Fofano, who was coming around as the pitch back.
Some single wing stuff too.
Yeah, they were doing some really interesting stuff in this game, and Notre Dame never got really gashed by it. Now, they caught a couple breaks. Cam Hart was peeking into the backfield early in the game and let a guy get by him, but Jack Kaiser had a good pressure that kept him from getting to the football and underthrowing it. So Vince, what stat line are you looking at to see that?
The media stats,
those are incorrect. I believe there's a couple of those that are off. I'm looking at. I'm waiting to. Let me see if I pull up the Notre Dame one, because they had several things that were wrong. Like they had Jeremiah Love's run going for only 7 yards. It was 1st and 10, and they got a first down on his run. So it's not really possible for that to have been 7 yards. So I think they had a couple mistakes on that one. ESPN had him down for 56. So we'll see we'll see how it turns out. But either way, they completely shut him down, and they shut him down as a fullback. The success he had was outside. Because guys, what we said, Ryan, we talked about this. You are not going to beat a team. Navy's not going to beat a team with getting outside. Yeah. And there was one stretch in the game where Navy went 8 straight plays where the ball went outside on the run. And they were getting yards, but they never ripped off those big runs. And eventually Notre Dame stops them and forces a field goal that they missed. I thought taking the fullback out of the game was a big part of it. Now, that to me was the biggest impact J.D. Bertrand had. I mean, there were so many times when they would run that fullback dive, J.D. Bertrand was coming out and blowing the dude up. And that was a big part of it. And they said, look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us getting outside. And Navy got their 6s and their 7s and a couple 10s and 11s, but they weren't really able to rip off those big plays. So I just thought overall they limited until late in the game, they limited the big plays. They controlled the middle of the line of scrimmage and basically said, you're going to have to beat us getting to the perimeter. And Navy's just not good enough to do that against Notre Dame.
That bad snap they gave Fofana the loss of all those yards.
Okay.
So the official stat line that Notre Dame just sent out has him for 16 for 32 and a loss of 26.
Yeah, that's dumb. That shouldn't be that. That should be that'll be a team that in the official stats, that'll be a team minus. So that's why ESPN's I believe numbers are correct. So ESPN has that as team minus minus for 24, one for minus 24.
Yeah. They have team minus 2.
That would be incorrect because it wasn't his. The ball was snapped to the quarterback. So 15 for 56 was his number, still 3.7 yards per attempt on a guy that last year went for almost 10 yards a carry against you last year, 15 for 133. I thought that part of it was good.
Yeah.
And being prepared, Ryan, to handle stuff that you weren't really prepared for, I thought was a pretty impressive thing we saw from the defense as well today.
I mean, because like structurally, they still were an option team, right? It's just they gave you a couple different looks out of it. You know, we talked about like the single wing stuff. I think I saw Wishbone at one point. Like they were doing a couple different things, right? It was interesting. I actually thought Navy's offensive game plan was kind of interesting, to be honest. Like I didn't think it was a bad game plan overall. I think Notre Dame just played really well today.
Yeah,
the final kid too. I mean, that kid runs hard, man. Like give that kid some credit. He ran hard. I mean, he was a hard fought 56 yards today. It really was. But at the end of the day, the option offense is built from the inside out, whether you're running read option, power option, speed option, triple option, whatever, single wing, like it doesn't matter, double tight, double wing, like it doesn't matter. You are trying to establish an inside presence as a running team. And the fact of the matter is that none of the interior defensive linemen had an impact in the like crazy tackle for loss numbers or like those incredibly disruptive, but they held the point of attack well. And the linebackers, and you mentioned JD, I agree, Brian, like JD had a really nice game to shut down the fullback, but the linebackers on the second level, I think for the most part, played a really good game overall. And I really think that they were able to funnel everything outside and let your troops make plays when they needed to make plays. Like that's where we kind of went there.
Go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say, myself, I can't speak for you guys. I was anticipating that JD Bertrand was going to have a boatload of tackles, right?
Yeah.
He didn't need to because the fullback was getting shut down by the defensive line.
Well, I thought he had a part in that too, but yes.
Sure. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like they weren't even allowing the fullback to get to the second level.
That was going to be my next point, and I'll kick it to you to set up for that is D-tackle was a big storyline in fall camp.
Sure.
And there was some up and down, a couple times Jason Onye let those low blocks get into his legs and drive him back. And a couple times, but for the most part, I thought the interior guys held their ground really well. There just was they were never able to get that mesh really going downhill because the line just kind of pushed them back. Ryan, we talked during the shows this week about how big their interior is for a triple option team. They've got a pretty good size inside group of guys. There was one bad fit early. I don't know if it was Riley Mills or Marist. Ryan and I were kind of saying we think it might have been this guy. We're not sure. There was one bad run fit overall. I thought the fits were good by the D line and the linebackers. If you can control with your D tackles, you're going to be pretty good. I was not as impressed, and I thought it was both waves. Right, it was first team and second team played well against it. Gabriel Rubio had a really good game. Riley had a late sack, but the other part of it too, guys, for me was I thought Jordan Patelho was great against the option today. The other ends, Javonte Jean-Baptiste had a couple big negatives in the game. He had a couple good plays. He was solid overall. I thought Nana had a really tough game. I thought Junior Tuihalamaka had a little bit of a rough game. I thought Jordan Patelho, though, on the edge was outstanding. He was great all game. Disciplined, did his job, but then also his block destruction on the edge was outstanding, which allowed him to really – Go ahead, Ryan.
He's had a lot of power to his frame. He's now 264 pounds, and he's maintained the explosiveness. Like he looked really good, man. He really did. I thought the edge group just in general was a little bit lackluster, to your point. Like there was a couple guys that I just wasn't super pumped up about after seeing the game. But I thought Jordan played a fantastic football game on the edge.
Yeah.
I mean, he was incredibly physical and decisive, right? Like I felt like there was some indecisiveness with a couple of the other edges, a couple guys that maybe were just locked in on doing one responsibility and they weren't able to read and react effectively and kind of filter. But I really thought Jordan Patelho was one of the most underappreciated performers I think today. I think that he had a really good football game.
Another guy that I thought we're going to talk about Jack Kaiser last because he had an interesting day. Yeah. But I thought Marist was about as good as we've seen him in an actual game today.
Yeah.
The one run fit aside, we don't know if it was Marist or Riley, but somebody had a run fit. But I thought that overall, I thought Marist was excellent. And just even doing some of the little things, Ryan, like when the guards would just kind of try to chop him on a second level, he'd just do like a little quick step, put his hand down, kind of knock him down. He had one of the better flow tackles of the game. He was backside. They ran an option away from him, and he just read it perfectly and just flew over the top. I think they got like a 2-yard gain on it. It's just like, I don't know who's going to make this tackle. And all of a sudden, Marist comes out of nowhere to make the tackle. I thought he was outstanding. We saw the speed and all the athleticism, Ryan, that we always talk about with Marist. But the biggest thing for me today is Marist played disciplined football today, from what I could tell. And that was a really good sign. Because like you said it yesterday, Ryan, and you were 100% correct. This is not the kind of game from Marist Liufau, the opponent that you expect Marist Liufau to be good based on what we've seen in the past. Lack of discipline. He wants to just kind of fly around and be freelance and do all that kind of stuff. Today, he played within structure and was really good. If that continues moving forward, Ryan, I'm going to start getting really excited about this defense. I don't want to get too excited yet because it's just one game with Marist. But the fact that he played, like if he would have just made a bunch of really athletic plays coming off the edge, I don't know how excited I'd be about it. The thing to me, Ryan, is he was having to make discipline plays, read plays, get to the ball plays. And I thought that was the big key for me.
Well, can I say this real quick, Brian, before I go in on Marist? I think after seeing JD absolutely hawk Fafano down by the sideline on that third and whatever it was to force a punt later in the game, I think the JD Bertrand slow crowd, I think kind of filters out and doesn't have much to say after that play. That was a great play. Marist for me, because it's so funny. We're on the message board and everyone's killing him after the run fit, whether it was his fault or not. We'll be able to have, upon further review, I'm sure you guys will kind of check in on that one, right?
Yeah, I've looked at it, Ryan. I didn't have to know what the call is to know who made the mistake.
Exactly.
It kind of looked to me like they doubled down on Riley and sucked him inside, and Marist was supposed to fit inside of him. And I thought he needed to fit better and see that Riley was getting down blocked and kind of read it better, maybe fit outside. But I mean, guys, you're going to have bad run fits. You're going to have, and that was it. That was it from him that I saw.
That was one of those plays where you had two guys in the same gap. So clearly there was a gap that was unsound there. And that's kind of where that one pops. But for the most part, I mean, there was one drive, especially in like the second quarter, where Marist was fantastic. It was the one where he forced the fumble, and then he had another big play working to the perimeter like 2 plays later. Marist played probably the best football game I've seen him play at Notre Dame today, in my opinion. I thought he was consistent. I thought he was very good. You saw the explosiveness. You saw the flash. And he didn't make a ton of mistakes. And I think that's the biggest thing with Marist is Marist last year was not dependable. Not even just from a game-to-game perspective. He wasn't dependable from a snap-to-snap perspective.
Yeah.
And today, I thought he was very dependable, and you saw the athleticism really shine because he seemed more certain with what he was expected to do today, which I think is great.
He played with a lot of confidence, Vince. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just the point that I wanted to make was that we saw Marist's speed and athleticism, but we saw it because he was going to the right place and he had already diagnosed where to go. He was being fundamentally sound, but he was so confident with it that he was able to show what he can actually do. He showed everybody else kind of what we've seen at practice in the past, but it never really, transferred to the field. I mean, that if we're being honest, right? It never really transferred to the field. Today was the first time that we saw him playing loose, fast, aggressive. He showed his speed. He showed why people were getting excited about him in the first place, and his confidence was because he was doing the right thing. And look, maybe he didn't mature quite as fast as we all wanted him to, but if he continues on this trend, then this defense has the possibility of being pretty darn good.
Well, the series you're talking about, Ryan, was the series that started in the first quarter, had like 2 plays, and then went into the second quarter. And Navy had gotten a couple first downs, so they had converted a 3rd and 3. That was the play where Riley Mills had a free run at the fullback and just overran him, missed a tackle, which they did several. We're going to get to that because that was one of the issues that I had today. Then they had a quick quarterback run on 4th down. First and 10, you had Marist forces the fumble on 1st and 10. Great pursuit. That was that speed you talked about, Ryan. So they get a 4-yard gain. Once they I thought that was a bad call, by the way, or not that. No, that was actually the later forced fumble by JD. It was a bad call. That was the right call. I thought Jack. I didn't think Jack had
when
full
JD
possession.
got out of the pile later on,
Yeah,
and they're like,
they were trying to say he had
ball.
possession.
Like,
that guy never had possession of that football.
never.
I couldn't tell that Jack had full possession of that ball before it went out of bounds.
Sure.
So I didn't have a problem with that call. Then you get to 2nd and 6, and that was the one, Ryan, that I was talking about where they actually ran a pitch the other way, away from Marist. And if he doesn't read that perfectly, guys, that 2nd and 6 maybe turns into 3rd and 1, maybe is a first down. Instead, he reads it perfectly, slams the guy for a 2-yard tack gain, brings up 3rd and 4. Navy gets nothing on the next play. And that was the one where they went outside and Cam Hart did a great job coming up, forcing it back inside. And then Jordan Patel got off a block and made the stop at the line of scrimmage, force a punt. Right. But like, it's those little things on 1st and 2nd down that Marist did that got them into a situation on 3rd down that Jordan and Cam could combine to stop the ball. And then he was a sound tackler too. There's a couple times I thought he was about to overrun a play. Like, do you remember the one in the second half where it's like he kind of went past the guy, but then he wrapped around him and like held on and brought him down? Like, those are things where he was flying fast the ball, but he was under control enough to where he didn't overrun the guy and then hit him and then fall off like he would last year. I thought that was a great sign. Really, really good sign. To see him playing the way he did, guys, I was impressed by that. I really liked what I saw from Marist today. Again, first game, it was good. Jack Kaiser was interesting. I thought Jack did a lot of good things today, but I also thought at times he just kind of was late getting outside early in the first half. Ryan, you and I talked about this at halftime. His numbers were great, but like a lot of his tackles in the first half were kind of down the line. On the pitches, he was getting out leveraged a little bit. I thought second half was complete opposite from him. And now he didn't have as many tackles in the second half, but his ability to come up and just be forceful against the perimeter blockers in the second half just completely threw off the timing of those outside runs. I thought Jack was much better in the second half. And I thought the other part too, guys, that I thought was you talk about turning points of the game. In a game that's going to be shortened by possessions, Notre Dame forced a 3-and-out on the first drive of the game. So by the time Navy gets their 4th offensive play, it's 14-0. The other one was you had that stop late in the half where you forced the field goal. Because I looked at my wife and I said, they got to stop them here because if they make this 21-7, they start the ball with the second half. Next thing you know, it's a 21-14 game, and your offense hasn't been on the field in 45 minutes. Right? Like that was a big stop. But coming out of halftime and making an immediate 3-and-out right then in the second half, to me, guys, was a big part of this game. They ran a pitch on the first play. They had a forced fumble on the second play. That's the one where Cam just blew it up and forced the fumble. That should have been Notre Dame football. I don't care what they say. That was what it was. And then they get the 3rd down, and it's 3rd and 9, and JD just reads it perfectly and tackles the guy way short of the first down marker and forces a fumble. If you let him get 1 or 2 yards more, they're in 4-down territory. But, and that was on a power read play. I hadn't really seen them run that a whole lot at Kennesaw State. And he read it perfectly. It was an epitome of what made this game so good, which is the linebacker play in this game was really, really good. Because on that forced fumble, it was Jack. Now Cam's the one that forced the fumble, but Jack took the slot blocker and just blew him up into the backfield. The adjustments that Notre Dame made in the second half, guys, I thought were really, really impressive. And then by the next thing you know, Navy doesn't get a ball again in the second half until it's 35-0, and it's a ball game. Game's over at that point in time. So I was really impressed by the performance of the Notre Dame defense. I really was, guys.
Yep. Now they came to play, man. Like I said, I mean, I think it was a great note that you made about Jack Kaiser, and that's why I hate raw tackle stats sometimes, because it's like tackle in the first half, you look at the box score and be like, Jack Kaiser was way more impactful in the first half, and I'm like, not in my opinion. I think he was much better in the second half, to your point, right?
But only had like maybe 1 tackle in the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was so forceful that he was leading to other guys making stats because he was blowing up the lead blockers, which is a big part of the optional. I mean, Vince, you know that if you can blow up the edge, and I thought the corners for the most part did a pretty good job of that. There's a couple times they got knocked back a little bit. Cam made the big mistake on the early pass that he let a guy get behind him. And fortunately, but what happened on that play? It's the best play of the first half for Jack. Jack Kaiser had a great pressure. It looked like Cam thought Jack was supposed to run with that guy, and so he turned him loose. But Jack went after the quarterback and got a pressure and didn't let the guy complete the pass. But other than that, I thought Cam played really well as a force player, very well as a force player. And a lot of those 5 and 6 yard runs, if the corners, like you may look at a 6 yard run and say, well, did they really do a great job? Yes, because if they get blocked out 2 more yards, that's a 15 yard run. That's a 17 yard run. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that. Jaden Mickey, second half, I noticed him doing that as well. Yeah. I thought the corners, for the most part, did a pretty darn good job of coming up and being in support. And when they had chance to make tackles, they did. But I thought their support play in this game was really good to me.
Jaden Mickey was the most physical corner on the team today, in my opinion. Man, like he was coming to balance well.
That tracks. Yeah. I mean, he's the most physical corner in practice too. So yeah.
I mean, he's talking. I did not notice Benjamin Morrison once, and it's probably the best thing that Navy did all game was not.
No, they were avoiding him like the plague. I mean, they really were. You know, one of the things too, guys, about defense is last year. You know, we talked about this defense has to be better at stopping the run, and today they gave up 175 positive yards for Navy. If you take away the 26-yard loss off the muff snap, they'd have had 152 yards today. That's pretty good, right? Against the triple option team, guys, that's actually very good. So even if you give them that plus 26 back or 24 back, actually it would have been 150 yards because it was actually a 24-yard loss, right, Vince?
Yeah,
a 24-yard loss, not a 26-yard loss.
Yeah, because he had 2 yards because of just running the football. Yeah,
Navy last year averaged 241.2 yards per game.
Right, you held them to 126. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, essentially, that's what's going to go into the books, right? I mean,
I'd say 100. Just to be more proper context, I'd say 150. But that 150, Vince, came on 46 carries.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like, I even give them that 24 back because that wasn't you stopping them.
Sure.
They had 150 yards on 46 carries. That's dominating the triple option, right?
Oh,
they
100%.
made good adjustments. I thought that they had a really good early game plan. They handled all the stuff that Navy threw at them. They made good second half adjustments.
Yeah.
I thought and they weren't big ones. They're just little ones. You know, hey, let's come up a little harder on corner. Let's, Jack, we need you to get, maybe a little wider and handle some of those things and be more prepared to take away that quick pitch.
Sure.
I thought all that stuff was good. And the other thing too, guys, is a big complaint we had about last year was Notre Dame was not a real disruptive team. And today I thought they were. They didn't have a ton of tackles for loss. They only had really like 4 or 5 tackles for loss. But they had a lot of zeros today. A lot of zeros. And Ryan, you and I talked about during the week, a 0 against Navy is a stuff. I mean, it's a really important play. The other thing too is there were 2 forced fumbles in this game. And that was something Notre Dame was not good at last year, guys. They were not a team that was very good at forcing fumbles last season. And matter of fact, Notre Dame only had 8 the entire season, and their first forced fumble did not come until the 4th game of the year last year. They had 2 today and almost recovered both of them. So I mean, it was, and I think they did recover one of them. I still think it was a bad call, but that was a big thing for me, guys. And it was them knocking balls out. It wasn't like a pitch that went awry. It wasn't something like that. It was them coming up, being physical and knocking balls out. I thought that was another really impressive thing from today, guys.
Yeah,
I mean that shows the physicality, in my opinion. Like, I mean, I think the one that we talked about already with Maris Loifau making the hit from pursuit like that. I mean, that again, I know he's coming from the offensive player's blind side, so he doesn't see it coming. But like, that's a forceful hit, man. That was a forceful hit
because it wasn't a swipe, Ryan. It was the hit that knocked it out.
Did his helmet hit the ball? Like, I think his helmet might have hit the ball. Like,
it wasn't like a backside swipe like the one that knocked it out of Audric. Is your point? It wasn't like that.
Even balls that weren't getting on the ground. Like, I mean, I mentioned Jaden Mickey for one, right? As far as like Notre Dame was coming to balance well as tacklers for the most part. Like, when they were making contact, they were doing really well. There were some missed tackles that need to get cleaned up. There's no doubt about that as far as the volume. But I thought they were a better tackling team than what they were majority of what I saw last year. And they were forceful hitters today, which is going to cause more. Like, if I'm coming to balance well and I'm coming with force, there's going to be more balls in the ground. That's just an easy conversation piece, right? Yeah. Like, there's no hard hitting analysis there. Like, you come harder as a tackler, you're probably going to knock the ball out more often. That's just basic common knowledge.
I mean, look, Navy had 12 first downs the whole game.
Yeah.
Like
That's wild.
normally that's two
and
drives.
Some of that, a lot of that came on that last drive of the game, fellas.
Sure.
When they
Sure.
had the twos in, their only scoring drive of the game came against the second team defense. I mean,
right. I
they
mean,
had their
that
backups in the game.
12 first downs is like 2 drives for Navy normally because, they're just plugging along and when they got long field, that's a whole game.
Four of them came on the last drive of the game, Vince.
So they had 8 first downs against the first team. I mean, that's crazy.
For a team that makes their living off of moving the chains methodically
Right.
the entire game. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Stat.
Yeah. Right.
That's an impressive performance, guys. That's a really impressive performance.
Yes, it
Navy
is.
last year had 21. They had 211 first downs last year in 12 games. That's an average of 17.6, and that was a bad year for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They had 11 against Army in you had 11 against Army in a game where they're both running triple option. Or not a whole lot of plays being run in that game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then their next lowest was like 11. But
yeah, you better not go to the bathroom during the Army-Navy game because you might miss the entire game.
This year? Seriously.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
If you got to go, you hold it until halftime because you're missing the game.
Right.
It's like when I was a kid, my uncle was telling me a story about how him and some buddies had gotten the Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks fight. And so, like right before the fight's about to start, my uncle, I can't remember if it was my uncle or a buddy his ran into the bathroom. He had to pee before the game started or before the fight started, and he comes back out and the fight's over.
Fight's over, baby.
It's like, what? Seriously? But Ryan, that was a good stat. Or Vince, that was a really good stat. The 12 first downs. That was that was really good.
Team defense, just overall. Yes, there's things we can nitpick, but the team defense, and it was. I like the game plan. I like the execution for the most part. The flying to the football, the physicality, like that was all really good. And they put together 2 halves of that. You know what I mean? It was good.
Couple negatives. I thought the first half, the safety play was not good. I thought in the second half, they started triggering Xavier Watts a little bit more downhill. And we saw that impactful right away. They ran a pitch where Xavier was flying downhill, made a stop. I thought he was much better in the second half than he was in the first half. The safeties, I felt in this game, guys, were partly more of a last line of defense in the first half. Is let's keep them back to protect because we're going to have our linebackers and Jack as an overhang really attacking. They used them to trigger a little bit more in the second half, which is why we also saw some more missed tackles. I know DJ Brown's a great leader, and I've heard he's a great kid. But at some point in time, you've got to realize he's a bit of a liability. I mean, the missed tackle on the one drive where you're stopping him way back on a third, it should have been a 4-yard tackles for loss. You're out of control. Like you're a 6th-year senior. You can't be making those kind of mistakes.
He made a good read too, man, but he just can't finish plays. Like he just can't finish.
And then he falls down on the deep throw, which should have been a touchdown. I mean, to be honest with you.
Great play by who hit him on
Vitelho
hit him on that play.
Did you see the
rush?
Did you see the? Yes, Ryan. Please explain that because he absolutely destroyed that right tackle on that particular play.
Yeah, he hit just like an outside club rip, I think, and then just kind of worked outside track, and he hit the quarterback as he was releasing. It still ended up being a decent throw, considering he got absolutely drilled. But if he does not get drilled, that's a touchdown. Like he was wide open. There was 5 to 6 yards of easy separation. That was going to be a touchdown. Jordan Vitello saved a touchdown, and it ended up being an incomplete pass because he altered it enough where Clarence Lewis could come back and get at least in the vision of the wide receiver, so you make the catch.
That was one of the negatives, Ryan, is there were 2 pass plays that honestly should have been big plays, if not touchdowns, if not for pressures getting there. And you say, well, the pressure's got there, but you can't turn guys loose like that because a team that's better at throwing the ball will have a quarterback that's going to make that play, right? Because we saw what happened with Notre Dame when they had a guy get beat and the pressure got to the quarterback. He still made those plays. You can't have those mistakes. And they were both made by it. To me, it seemed both made by veterans, a 6-year senior and a 5th-year senior. You can't make those mistakes. We saw Riley Mills miss a tackle in the backfield. We saw was it Jack had one missed tackle? There was another missed tackle. Clarence Lewis had a missed tackle where he just overran a play.
I think JT missed one too. So
yeah,
there was some
you
missed
just
tackles.
you can't have those mistakes. Like and it's one thing to, guy makes a good play and gets off of you, but when you're going out of control and you just whiff on a guy in space, you can't have those mistakes. That was one of the big things for me. So when you look at where we saw from this group, to me, that was the missed tackles. Although the volume was less, I will say that the volume was less. They were just noticeable out in front of everybody. And then the potential 2 big plays in the pass game they could have had off of the mistakes. Those are things that you look at the film and you say, hey, guys, you made a mistake, you clean it up. But why did it not work, guys? It goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the show. Those plays didn't work for Navy, even though there was 2 huge mistakes, because they played so hard and they played so fast that they were able to get pressure on the quarterback and not let him get the ball where it needed to get to. And at the end of the day, Ryan, you played college football. You coached high school football. Vince, you coached high school football, played high school football. I coached and played in college football. Guys, you know this. There's going to be times when the play does not go how you're supposed to. You make the wrong play call, or a guy doesn't execute his assignment. But I've always said this. I have had on my teams, I've had receivers run the wrong route, but they ran it hard and got open, and the quarterback still threw it to him.
Right.
And quarterback's not going to say, hey, he didn't ran the wrong route, I'm not going to throw it to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Go hard. And sometimes you're going to make up for a mistake. Cam Hart made a mistake on that one play, but Jack Kaiser went hard at the guy, forced a bad pass. DJ Brown falls down. Can't do that, man. That was just bad technique. But because Jordan Telho did his job at a high level, he saved them. That's what football is sometimes. Hey, I didn't do my job, but my boy had my back. My buddy had my back. He made the play, and I didn't get burned for it. And now next time it's going to be DJ's responsibility to, let's say Jordan makes a mistake. Now DJ's got to make up for it. That's team football, fellas. You're going to make mistakes, but you need your teammates to pick you up. Pat Coogan misses a block. Sam Hartman shows great poise, gets the ball off, touchdown. Right? Well, Pat Coogan made up for it the rest of the game, I thought, by playing really solid football the rest of the way.
He did.
And that's team football, fellas, and that's something that I was really impressed by with what we saw today.
I used to say it as a coach to my players that everyone's going to make mistakes, make them fast, right? Like that's the biggest
make
thing.
them 100%.
Like, 100%. Always have to be aggressive and fast, always. Because there's
yep.
no perfect player. I mean, Joe Alt made some mistakes today. That's just where it is, right?
Yeah.
Everyone does. But the great players for me are the ones that make less of them, but the ones that they do make, they still potentially can make an impact because they're playing very hard, right? And I think that's what you saw.
So I mentioned the first drive of the game, fellas, the first drives of the 2 halves, because I felt like last year Notre Dame was not a really fast starting team on defense. I thought it took the defense last year at times. It took them some time to get caught up to the game. There was so much thinking that it took them a while to get caught up. They were also not a very good third down defense last year. I thought teams could kind of go in at halftime and come out and make adjustments and get at them. I thought a big turning point of this game, and it was really 2 for me, was the fact that Notre Dame came out and forced a 3-and-out on the beginning of both halves against Navy. To me, that was a sign of, okay, I like seeing that. I thought those to me were turning points for the defense. What were some of the turning points that you guys saw from this game?
Well, for me, I mean, offensively,
defensively. We talked
sorry.
about the offense ones earlier.
Okay, sorry.
Good.
I agree with you. It was the first 2 drives because it set the tone. It set the tone for not only the entire half, but the game. And if there was any glimmer of hope, because remember what happened last year, right? It's not even that far in the past.
They had a 25-point lead at halftime last year. Notre Dame did 35-13. It's only 3 points more than what they had this year, and exactly.
It's right there. And so the halftime speech for Navy kind of writes itself, right? And frankly, the halftime speech for Notre Dame writes itself. Yeah. Well, Notre Dame responded, and they're like, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen this year. 3-and-out, boom. Like that right there specifically. Yes, the first one was important, no doubt about it, but they already had like a 7-point lead and, that whole thing. But the come out in the second half and put them away in 3 plays was like, okay. Like after that, me personally, I was like, yeah, we're good. Like that second half's not going to be a thing to worry about this time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I honestly, I think a big turning point of the game was there was a adjustment that Navy made to start hitting the outside, obviously, right? Because the inside wasn't working, and the outside was working for Navy for a little bit. But then I think there was an adjustment of being a lot more sound on the perimeter and still funneling things out there. But the understanding of like, guys, like we need to be a little bit more forceful. One player that I think was a lot better in the second half than in the first half, at least on a noticeable level, was like I didn't notice Xavier Watts like all first half, right? Second half, he was coming up with force and violence, I thought, against the pitch, against the outside pursuit stuff. So I think the adjustment that the defense made in this one after the outside stuff was working to be able to be more forceful and to be able to string things out a little bit more and to be able to have earlier contact on the pitch, I think that was a big section of the game, honestly, because they showed that was the big thing with me last year on both sides of the ball at times was it looked like the adjustments just weren't up to par at times.
Yeah.
Today, I thought the adjustments were very good on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball.
If I had to point to a singular play that was the turning point of this game, it would have been late second quarter. It was on that drive that I was talking about earlier where Navy had 8 straight runs that went outside. They got all the way down to the 20-yard line. There was less than 2 minutes left. And they go 3rd and 5, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste blows up the fullback on a quick dive for a 2-yard loss. You went from 2nd and 5 to 3rd and 7. That next play on 3rd and 7, they did a quick dive, a quarterback dive, the duck, but he only got 3 yards. 4th and 4, they decided to kick a field goal. Notre Dame called timeout. They decided to kick a field goal. Make it or miss, it doesn't matter, 3 points. But that stop right there that forced the field goal allowed Notre Dame to get the ball on offense and go down the field and score. That was a big turnaround because that was right after I turned to my wife and said, they got to stop them here because, again, I'm sitting there thinking, guys, I'm immediately going back to last year. They're going to go down the field and score. They're going to take another minute and a half off the clock. They're going to get a touchdown. They're going to start the second half of the football, because I got to start getting the BK PTSD. And even from last year, they're going to get the ball. They're going to go down the field, start the second half, score a touchdown, and we're going to be in a dogfight again. And again, we have no business being in a dogfight. And defense steps up, makes that big play. Javonte Jean-Baptiste makes that play, -2. They're kicking a field goal 2 plays later. Yes, they missed it. Notre Dame goes down the field, scores a touchdown. Instead of it being 21-3, and then Navy has the ball to start the half, or maybe 21-7, and Navy starts the second ball at the half, it's 28-0 coming out of halftime. And, yeah, I know what happened last year and all that, but with the new clock rules, Navy wasn't going to probably be able to come back and win it. They could have made it more interesting.
Oh, for sure.
If you had to look at one play, I think that's the one play that to me completely was the turning point of this game that showed me something they're a little different. And, hey, Al Golden, I thought, guys, had a really good game plan. Really good game plan, made adjustments. They threw a lot at Notre Dame early that they hadn't seen. They handled it. They got some yards, right? Navy got some yards, but it was like 5s. It was like 6s. It was like 4s. They eliminated the big plays for the most part and took the fullback out of the game. And no matter what Navy did and how they chose to attack, Notre Dame had a fullback plan. The D tackles, JD at Mike, I thought did a great job of taking their fullbacks out of the game. I was really impressed by what I saw today from the defense. And look, this was the side of the ball, fellas, that dominated during fall camp. And we saw that today. I mean, looking at these stats, Navy had 169 yards of offense today. That's it.
3 points. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's it. And the 3 points, as we pointed out, what would their numbers look like? What was their touchdown drive? Let me go see how long their field goal drive was at the end of the game against the second team defense.
It was like 12 plays, 60-something yards.
56 yards. So they were barely over 100 yards of total offense against the Notre Dame. Now, again, -24, so you added 24 of it because of the -24. But still, even if you add the 24 guys and you give them every what if possible, that is pure domination. Again, against a triple option offense, they're going to, because they got their 5s and their 6s, and I'm like, to me, guys, that's a hitch route for a normal offense. It's a normal offense completing a 5-yard hitch route. Those pitch plays are just like, if another team was throwing an air raid offense was throwing the ball and all they were getting was 4 and 5s at you, but man, we're shutting them down because we're making them go play after play after play, and the more plays you make a team run, the more chance there is they make a mistake or you make a stop. And that's exactly what happened today. Because what killed the Notre Dame defense last year? It was, oh, shoot, wrong fit, 50-yard run. Oh, shoot, wrong fit, 36-yard run. Oh, shoot, wrong fit, 23-yard touchdown after a sudden change turnover. That stuff killed the defense last year. We didn't see any of that today because even when they did make a mistake, somebody else picked them up. And I'm going to end with this, guys, on the defense. The biggest thing that we talked about, I think more than anything, Ryan, and I could be wrong, is we said my thing was the biggest concern I had about the Notre Dame defense last year is when a play needed to be made, there was nobody to step up and make it. And that hurt them time and time again. And not only did we see that once or twice, we saw that several times. We saw that with Botelho making the big stop when a guy was running free. Kaiser getting the pressure when a guy had been turned loose. Javonte Jean-Baptiste making that big stuff at the end of the second quarter. JD coming up and making a huge third down stop to force a punt. We saw those things happen so many times where the defensive players made clutch plays in moments that helped turn this game completely around. I think that, to me, was the biggest thing that I'm going to take out of this game. Because, look, they're not going to be able to use this game plan unless for some reason Notre Dame's playing Army or Air Force in the college football playoff or a New Year's Six game. They're not going to see this offense again, right?
Go Falcons, baby. Yeah.
And so none of that translates.
Right.
What translates is the toughness, the physicality, the discipline, and the fact that when plays needed to be made, different dudes on different levels made those plays. We didn't see that last year. So to see that in the first game, fellas, I was happy about it.
Yeah.
Happy about it.
Too often the guys that we were expecting to be the dudes of the defense last year just didn't show up in certain games, right? And I think that your guys on each level, I think for the most, one guy that we were excited about this offseason is Riley Mills. I thought that he had a pretty good performance overall. Jordan Botelho has been a guy that everyone's been calling for to be a breakout player. I thought he played really well. JD had a good football game. Maris had a good football game. And secondary-wise, again, like, the safety position needs to get better. There's no doubt, but like Jaden Mickey came to play. Benjamin Morrison was rock solid. Like there was a lot of good defensively because I think some of your guys that were supposed to be your dudes did play a good game for the most part.
Yeah. Well, and the other big thing that you can take away from this, and I know that it's kind of a Captain Obvious comment, but I'm going to make it anyway. You gave up 3 points. Like, obviously coaches shoot for a shutout and all of those things, but you gave up 3 points to a team that scores. So, frankly, I would have liked Navy to score a couple more touchdowns, so I would have hit the over. But, you held them to 3 points.
Selfish son of a,
You're not wrong. I lost some money today, Brian, okay? But
I'm kind of glad you lost some money.
Well, if Notre Dame would have scored a touchdown instead of missing a field goal, I'd have hit it too, so whatever. But anyway.
Did you bet the over on a Navy game? Are you crazy, man? Are you absolutely crazy?
They almost hit it. It was 49.5. There was 45. But anyway, the bottom line is that
you can blame the 2 missed field goals for that one, Vince.
Exactly.
Notre Dame's and then
special teams.
Navy's. Yep.
Special
freaking
teams.
Kickers.
God bless it. You can't live with them. I'll tell you that much. I'm going to stop right there. So, but they gave up 3 points as a team. Moving forward, like as a defense, you've got your goal boards and all that stuff. Like you gave up 3 points. That's great. Moving forward, you got an opportunity, obviously, to put up a very low number next week. And then you start moving forward. And that's just confidence. You just gain confidence as a defense that way.
Yeah. So, fellas, that's it for the defensive breakdown. We're going to have some super chats we're going to get to, a lot of super chats. But any kind of final pieces to the puzzle you guys want to kind of – not final pieces, but final thoughts on this game, guys. We've said a lot. We broke down a lot. But and I got to tell you, fellas, I felt really good. I had nerves the whole first game. I kept waiting on something to happen, but then they just kept making stops. And I got to tell you, when they forced the 3-and-out to start the second half, I looked at my wife and I said, "This team's different. This team's different."
Yeah, I would say for me, it's just like for people listening, just make sure that we're isolating these things, right? This is one game of a 12-game season, and hopefully a lot more after that, right? So I think that it's almost like a chapter book, or it's a step among, a step of stairs. Like it's one step. And Notre Dame, I think, aced this first step. Next week, Tennessee State, then NC State, and then it's going to get progressively harder from there. But in order to get to where Notre Dame wants to go, you have to ace these tests, right? Because that's what we need to see. So Notre Dame did really well today. This doesn't either go into the national championship game after today, right? But this means that this was a very good, positive step and they must continue to build upon it. A lot of positives come out of today, which I think it's my biggest takeaway, is that there was a whole lot of positives.
Look, I had confidence going into this game for a lot of reasons, but to actually sit there and watch the offense score, 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 score. You know what I mean? Like, just put up number. I said it a long time ago. I think the scoreboard at Notre Dame Stadium is gonna be like a pinball machine. She's gonna be like bling, 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 bling. Like they did it. Like that game one, check. And yes, it's Navy. I get it. I don't care. Like, Notre Dame's offense is right now, it's balanced. It is thoughtful. They executed and they scored touchdowns, man. Like, okay, let's go. Yeah, that's what I'm taking away from this, is that the offense is what I thought that they were going to be, and now they got to continue it. Game one, check mark.
It's so nice to have a quarterback that, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not even going to finish that sentence, but it's
You're not wrong. Yeah.
So let's move on to some super chats, fellas, because we actually got some of those today. We showed one from John A1 earlier today. John A1 also had another one. He said Notre Dame ran 57 offensive plays today. How does that project for plays per game for the remainder of the season? John, I don't know if they're this efficient all year. I think that's going to be a pretty good number, but I don't know that 57 is what I would necessarily say is going to be the new norm, because they didn't have to run a lot of plays, not because of the clock as much, guys, but more so because of how efficient they were. Like I pointed out that one drive where they went, what was it, 79 yards in 4 plays, and just didn't even get to a second down. Yep. That doesn't have anything to do with the clock. That has to do with That's really freaking efficient when you look at the performance. So I think that had more to do with it than necessarily the clock. I think that probably hurt Navy a little bit more than it did Notre Dame today. But I think that was, if they're this efficient, I mean, yeah, they didn't run a lot of plays because they had 27 first downs.
Right.
They ran 57 plays. Almost half of their plays went for first downs. Think about that.
That might be the craziest stat I've heard today. That's insane.
That is, and you're gonna love this one, Ryan. 13 rushing, 13 passing, 1 penalty. Like,
call that balance, baby. It's what we call balance.
Yes, balance. That's the key word.
Yeah, that was impressive. I mean, that was about as efficient of a day as you're going to see. It is, 57 plays, 444 yards of offense is what they had, 7.8 yards per play. Again, it's Navy, but if this is even close to what we see the rest of the year, this offense is going to be really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
42 points on 44 yards. You had 57 plays and 42 points. And did they have any short fields? I don't think that they did. I thought all their drives, their scoring drives were 81, 63, 78, 80, 63, 60. That's what Notre Dame's scoring drives were.
Oh, okay.
Their shortest drive was 60 yards.
I thought they got the ball to 35 one time.
They missed the field goal.
Is that what the
Okay. Yes, the field goal drive. They got the ball at like the 37.
Yeah, yes.
And they missed a field goal on that drive.
Okay.
So you need to start on the other side of the field, is what you're saying, for Notre Dame to be a good offense. Got it.
They need more room.
No more short fields.
They're the Steph Curry of football. They need to be shooting from distance.
Right. Too close. It's too close.
Too close.
But just those efficiency numbers, guys, you just look at them, you're like, that's just not. Yeah. That's not where it's supposed to be. I mean, you just don't expect to see that in a game. I mean, that's a really high level of efficiency. 57 plays and 42 points. Like, that's yeah. I'll take that. Like, they scored 44 points against Boston College last year and had 63 plays. They scored 41 points against Syracuse, had 75 plays, and that included some short fields. They scored 44 points against UNLV, had 75 plays. They scored 45 points against North Carolina, had 85 plays. So way more plays.
Yeah, it's efficient.
Way more plays. The last time I saw them this efficient was in 2021. They scored 55 points against Georgia Tech on 59 plays, but they had 2 defensive touchdowns in that game, if you remember correctly. So it was really 41. So it's very similar to this number, 41 on 59, right? Because they had, remember, that was Myron had the long touchdown, and then Kaiser had a touchdown INT for 6 in that game as well. So very impressive all around performance by Notre Dame. Very impressive performance. Fighting Irish fan 91. Newberry equals our new Dino Baber. Sad. I don't know what that means. So
I don't know.
Is Dino notorious for being a great offensive guy, but not doing well against the Irish? Is that what they're trying to say?
Or maybe not doing well as a head coach, perhaps? I'm not quite.
I
don't know why who our is. If you're a Notre Dame fan, I don't know who our is or why it's sad.
It's his first game as a head. It's his first game as a head coach.
But I don't understand. Like, first of all, you guys' name wrong. Our new Dino Baber. I don't get that. It's Dino Babers.
Dino was never ours.
Right. And then why would that be? Like, so if you're saying, well, Dino was a great offensive coordinator, but Notre Dame has pretty much dominated him, like, why is that sad? Unless it's the sad is sarcasm. Could be sad. Like, oh, sad for you. I don't know. I'm a little thrown off, so we're just going to move on to the next one. L.A. Adams says that was fun. Love the look and feel of the offense. I do think we owe a bit of gratitude to the previous OC, so thanks, Tommy Rees, for leaving. Go Irish. I was wondering where he's going.
Wow.
David Hess. Hey, you know what? I since everybody's kind of saying that, let's not forget a lot of the talented young players that were playing today were guys that Tommy Rees recruited,
including Sam Hartman, by the way.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Throw that out there to you guys.
Tommy Rees walks so Jared Parker can run, boys.
Right.
That's all I got to say.
It's okay for us to be excited about what Jared Parker did without trying to kick other people down. So David Hess with a super chat. So that's what a real quarterback can do for us. Been a while. Onward, Notre Dame. I mean, I've heard that, Vince, so many times today from people. It's like amazing. And Jason Garrett saying it, like, but like we kind of have seen this. I mean, when they could protect, I still say this. If Jack Kaiser, part of the reason we said last year was, man, if only Jack Kaiser could come back, because in 2022 they had a competent offensive line that could have protected Jack Kaiser, which they didn't often have in 2021.
Jack Cohn.
Let's say Jack Kaiser. Jack Cohn. Yeah,
Jack Kaiser would probably be a pretty good quarterback.
He was a good high school quarterback.
Really good high school quarterback.
He could have done maybe some favors today.
Like Deshaun Kaiser, maybe. Jack Cohn. I was watching that play where Jaden Mickey came up and just blew up the pitch. But Jack Cohn was a guy that, to me, if he would have had a better offensive line, could have been really, really good for Notre Dame. But again, it just kind of leads to the fact that, but he couldn't do some of the things that Sam Hartman did today from an escapability standpoint. That just wasn't really Jack's game, at least not consistently. Yeah. But it does go to show that when Notre Dame has an offensive line that's legit and a quarterback that's legit, that's the combination we haven't seen a lot of. We've seen some years where the offensive line, where the quarterback was pretty talented, but the offensive line wasn't as good. And this team has that. Because 2021, Jack Cohn had some great moments, but when he got let down is usually because the offensive line couldn't, and the run game was terrible.
Yeah.
Today was an incredibly balanced performance from
yes, it was.
Sam is going to steal my heart, man.
All right. So after the game, he's doing an interview, and it looked like he like his hair, like what she goes. My wife goes, it doesn't even look like he played a football game. I don't know if he taking a comb and combed it or something before the interview, but
it was just blowing in the wind. It was, I do love the fact that he thinks that there's a king of Ireland. Did
he say that?
Yeah.
Oh no, did he?
Where he got the shillelagh. He's like, I think we got it from the King of Ireland or something like that. I was like, oh no, no.
Sammy.
Yeah, they used to have a they used to have that, right? So
it was just funny. He was on the spot. They asked him where he got the shillelagh from, and but
oh, Sammy.
That's the one thing he did wrong today,
King of Dublin, apparently he said. That's funny.
Yeah,
really funny.
all good.
King of Dublin. Yeah.
Caleb Collins does not like the new clock rule. Says it's garbage. I don't necessarily love it either. The game got over really fast, and again, if you love football, why do you want less of it? I'll just never understand that. I love football. Tickets are more expensive than ever.
Much Major League
Let's
Baseball,
have less
apparently.
of it. Exactly.
It's for safety, Brian. It was for safety. That's what they told me. They told me it was
for the safety of our advertisers.
Yeah, exactly.
Our games are going over.
We could fit the game into a window.
Tyler Evans, Jaden Greathouse, 3 catches, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. Thank you, Jaden, Tyler, for your super chat. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Fort Wayne Irish says, Coach Marcus Freeman and Jared Parker said we're going to be multiple by all accounts. That's what we got. This offense will be a blast to watch this year.
Yep. Trying to tell everybody it's going to be multiple and it's going to be fun.
Hope you guys are right. Greg Lismo with super chat. Thank you, Greg. This offense will be electric and fun to watch. Hartman was legit 100. Thanks, IB, for all you guys do. Go Irish. Thank you, Greg. Yeah,
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, man, appreciate you. It was a fun. It really was. It just the calm, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just the calm. Just the There just never seemed to be any panic. Just getting the ball where it needed to go to. There weren't any like, oh my gosh, like what? Like there wasn't a throw he made today where like, oh my Lord, like I've never seen a quarterback make. It's just, dude, just do your job. Just get the ball where it needs to go. Get it on time. Let the guys eat. And he did that today, right?
Yep.
I mean, the best play he made was the scramble touchdown to Jaden Greathouse. Like that was the best play he made. The other stuff was just, dude, getting the ball where it's supposed to go.
Going through the progressions.
And I'm not saying that to take away what to me, that's what I want to see from a quarterback. I don't need you to, like the Caleb Williams Superman stuff works sometimes, but we saw that last year working against Notre Dame, but the next week Utah took that away and USC could do nothing in that game, right? I mean, you need to be able to have this. And then occasionally if the quarterback's got to go make some plays, and he can go make some plays, which he did. But, man, just you got all these dudes just, that's another thing too, guys. I never felt at any point in time that he was looking for someone. Like, oh shoot, I'm looking for someone. It was always just like, hey, where's the read? Where's the ball supposed to go?
I think the box score shows that. Again, 9 guys that caught a pass today. Like that shows it. I mean, by the way, we didn't talk about this, but that catch by Aldrich Estimate was pretty dang sick, man.
The one-handed grab.
Catch, man. I'm sick.
Yeah. Josh Phillips says defense held Navy to 128 yards rushing dominance. Yeah, it was a heck of a performance. It really was. I mean, this was actually because if you look at what Navy did against Notre Dame 2 years ago, Marcus Freeman had a great performance against Navy 2 years ago. We kind of forget that. Notre Dame held Navy to 184 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Today they had 169 3.2 yards per play. Today they were at 169 yards of offense and 3.1 yards per play. And that was with having the whole offseason to get ready for the Notre Dame defense. Navy had a lot better idea of what Notre Dame was going to do than Notre Dame had what Navy was going to do. And that context has to also be taken into account, in my opinion, when you talk about the performance of Notre Dame defense. Like, I just never felt like Al Golden panicked today. Like, when they were throwing different wrinkles, there was no panics. Like, guys, don't worry about all that. It's not just Al Gold not panicking, but his players didn't panic because it was more like, I don't care how they line up. This is your job. Do your job.
Yep.
Right? They can line up however they want to line up. They can do all the split backs and they go shotgun. Doesn't matter. You've got the quarterback. You've got the pitch guy. You've got the fullback, right? Just do your job.
Yep.
And for the most part, they did it. It was great preparation, guys. I mean, great preparation for this game. And now you get to move past and you don't have to worry about the option anymore. Just beautiful.
I know it's off your back now. You don't have to
very,
spend any
very
time with it
beautiful.
anymore. Nice.
Brandon Plensner says, what is your overall impression of the guard play? This came out obviously before the show started. Guys, well, actually it was early before we started talking about the line. We talked about it, but that was my biggest concern, honestly, coming into the season was the guard play.
Mm-hmm.
I said something in the show yesterday. I think it was yesterday's show. No, it was actually in our Thursday prediction show, right? I said the biggest question I have on offense is the offensive line. And it wasn't – some people took that as like I'm concerned about the offensive line. And it wasn't so much that I was concerned about it. I was a little concerned about it, because of some of the starter at left guard and just the uncertainty, Zeke coming back from the injury and all that. But it was more about just the unknown. Because we'd never really seen Rocco and Pat Coogan do anything. I mean, they'd never played a meaningful down of football. I think they both were in the single digits in career plays in their career. It was the unknown. Well, we have seen them play now, and I thought they didn't just hold their own, guys. Right. Ryan, I think you were right. At times, Rocco was dominant.
Yep.
And Pat was good. He wasn't just getting away and don't screw anything up. I mean, he was good. He was solid. He did some good things. That was impressive to me. Again, one game, they got to do it again in 2 weeks, especially against NC State. But that was a really good first step for those guys.
As a tandem, I would say they were very good. And again, I think the best of Rocco was dominant at times in this football game. It was.
We never saw the guards move people last year like they did in this game.
Rocco got more movement today by himself, and I think most games last year of the guards as a pairing. Yes, I would agree.
Agree. Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. I've been trying to tell y'all, Great House, my fellow Texan, ain't no joke. Glad I got to watch a game with my dad. I'm intoxicated, but I still love IB. Okay.
Charlie, what do you mean you've been telling us? What does that mean, man?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, because Ryan's never talked about how much he loves Jaden Greathouse. Ever. Yeah. I'm glad you got a chance to
I know
watch
everyone thinks that Salty is like the mayor of Jaden Greathouse land, but I was there first. I just want to put that out there, man.
Yeah, Ryan always gotta Always got to steal Salty's thunder, man.
Man,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
mean.
Hey,
Got a
he needs
super.
to stay salty somehow, man.
That's
So
right.
I need to stay
That's right.
salty from
Got a super sticker from Randy Hernandez. Haven't seen you in a while, Randy. Thank you, man. Glad to have you back in the show, and thank you for the super chat, buddy. Appreciate you. Michael S., how do you think the O-line played, better or worse than expected? So we've talked about how we thought they played. Let's answer the second part of Michael's question, guys. Vince, and I'll start with you, and then Ryan, I'll go to you. We can both answer it because if you had the same answer, it's fine, but I want to get both of your thoughts. Vince, did they play better than you expected? Worse than you expected? You can talk big picture. You can talk run game versus pass game.
Yeah.
Maybe you thought they were going to do well in one, but not the other. Just overall thoughts, Ryan or Vince. How do you think that they performed compared to your expectations coming into the game?
So I will preface this with I want to watch the film back upon further review. We'll talk more about the offensive line specifically because I tend to I watch the skill guys and the ball and all that. I do. So, but here's what I saw. I saw massive running lanes. I saw a clean pocket for the quarterback the vast majority of the game. And they played better than I thought. For me, the jury was still out on the Pat Coogan thing. I think Rocco earned his spot, and I think that's great. But I was worried about consistency with Rocco because, we knew that he was a beast, but I was worried about consistency, right?
Well, we knew he was in high school, right?
Right. And to his credit, he went out and earned that spot, and he proved why he earned that spot today. Like, from what I saw, they played better than I anticipated. I thought there were going to be a few more bumps in the road in game one, especially with the way Navy wants to play.
Yes.
I mean, just based on last year with the blitzes and the zero covers and
movement and
all that stuff, right? It's designed to confuse guys. And both of the guards are young, and they're young in age, and they're also young in experience, right? And so I expected to see more misses, to be honest with you, than I saw. Now I want to go back and watch it. But from the live viewing, they played better than I thought they were going to.
Ryan, what was the phrase that you used about the Navy defense when I asked you to just explain what makes them so good defending the run? What was the phrase you used?
Organized chaos.
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing is they don't just line up and blitz. They pre-snap stunt. They do all types of stuff. It's not just blitzing. It's all the movement. And to your point, Vince, yes, they handled it very well. Ryan, how about you? How would you say the offensive line performed relative to what your expectations were coming into the game?
I think that the offensive tackles lived up to exactly what I thought they were going to be coming into this game. I mean, again, I think that Joe Walt, just off of impulse here, is that I thought that Joe Walt played fantastic. And I thought that Blake Fisher played very well as well. And I thought that Zeke Correll was just as consistently good football player that we saw at the end of last year. The guard position was one that I had certain question marks in, obviously, but I thought Rocco was going to play a pretty good game. He exceeded my expectations, to be honest, just from an individual perspective. I thought he looked fantastic. And Pat Coogan really exceeded my expectations. Like, I didn't know what to expect from him, but I wasn't obviously high on what he would potentially do. But I thought he was solid to good throughout the entire game, in my opinion, right? So I think as a collective, the offensive line was very good. But I think that it was very good, not because the two tackles in the center bolstered it up, right? Pulled it up. It was very good because across the board, everyone was good. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a collectively good unit, which was great to see.
The comment you made, Ryan, it was master. Brian Newberry was the master of chaos.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's what you said. Yeah. And the guards handled it very well. And that led to some of my angst about the guards. Was two guys that have never really played going against this particular defense. It concerned me.
First, right out of the gate.
And they handled it tremendously well. And we haven't said this, but props to Joe Rudolph, too. What was our question? Could he build on what Coach Easton established last year? For at least one game, certainly did. Certainly did. Against a team that Notre Dame in November of last year got whipped by up front, and schematically. So very, very, very good day. Michael Burke with a super chat. Now, hey, hold on a second, man. What now last year, Michael, you do your scores. What happened? You didn't want to do 40 through 30, or maybe he didn't want to do $4.23. Maybe that's what it was. He went more. So we appreciate you, Michael. So thanks, IB. Day in, day out. You guys are consistently yourselves. Got us sanely through the offseason. Greatly appreciate your hard work. Go Irish. You are welcome. And we love to do it because it's also cathartic for us as well. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, sir.
Mace AK, over under 15 on IB members who said salty after each Great House touchdown. It better been more than that, right? I mean, it better been more. I'm taking the over, Mace. I'm taking the over.
I texted Brian during the show after Great House's first touchdown. I said, somewhere salty is smiling.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Clayton Cassidy with Super Chat. Thank you, Clayton. And thanks for all of your hard work, guys, and money towards the CFBA playoff tickets. I love the optimism.
Oh.
One game and we're in the playoff. I dig
Let's
it.
go.
I dig it. Go Irish. See Irish Nation next week in the Bend. Safe travels heading here next week, buddy. Hopefully we see you tomorrow night and then Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Got a lot of shows coming up here, man. Chris Federico, Super Chat. Thank you, Chris. Hartman gets the ball out 1 to 2 seconds faster than Cone, Pine and Cone, etc. Well, not Jack. I mean, I think Jack got the ball out pretty quickly. I mean, go watch the – hey, guys, let's not forget what Jack Cone did his first game at Notre Dame either, when he threw for 366 and like 4 touchdowns against Florida State, right? Yes. So, but yes, now here's the key for Sam. He needs to build on this performance where Jack kind of took a couple steps back against like Toledo and – next couple weeks because the offensive line struggled. It's now building on this performance. You know what we forgot to do, guys, during the earlier part of the show? We forgot to do game balls for defense. So who gets your game ball for defense? We did forget to do that. We all did Hartman on offense. Who gets your game ball on defense?
Maris would be mine, just because I think that the expectations were low on Maris Loival coming into the year. I thought he played a fantastic game. Honorable mention, an underrated player that I talked about early on, but I think Jordan Patel, who had a fantastic football game as well. But I'll give it to Maris this week.
How about you, Vince?
I'm going JD. I think while he didn't necessarily show up on the stat column, he was the clear leader of that defense, getting everybody where they needed to go. I mean, he's the alpha out there. It's JD for me.
I think all three of those guys are great options. If I could cheat, I'd say if I could give the game ball to the linebackers. I mean, look, for all the crap they took the last couple, last year, and rightfully so, their play warranted it to a degree. I think that sometimes we, as a fan base, ignored that they got better in the second half of the year. But this is a game where your linebackers have to play well. And I thought as a unit they did very well. I thought they did very well.
Agree.
Michael S. with another super chat. Thank you, Michael. He says, last Navy drive, was that all second-team defense? I mean, there might have been some guys that worked in the rotation early that were playing, but it was like I saw Christian Gray in there. We saw Thomas Harper in there, who didn't play a whole lot this game because he's a nickel, and they didn't really play nickel. I saw backup linebackers in there. I mean, there might have been a guy here, a guy there, but at that point in time, I was kind of – actually, I'm going to go see if I can find that series here real quick and see if I can find some of the guys that were out there on that series. Give me 1 second here, fellas. So it's 42-0. So they're driving. So I'm looking at it here. It's like Jaden Mickey at corner. He's in the rotation. I see Javante Jean-Baptiste. He was the number 2 guy. I see Christian Gray. I think I see Donovan Heinisch in there. I mean, Maris was in there, right? So they had a couple guys. But some of that is because they probably didn't want to burn game one redshirt, game one action for some of the linebackers in case they maybe want to still redshirt them, but Jalen.
They did the same thing on offense. Like they put Steve Angeli in, but there were still some first teamers that were still in there and such.
But it was your twos. I mean, there's no Riley Mills, there's no Howard Cross, there's no Benjamin Morrison, there's no Cam Hard, no Xavier Watts, no JD Bertrand, no Jack Kaiser. But yeah, it was primarily that group. Jordan Bedell also wasn't on the field then. Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. Thank God for Parker. Reese would have been battling until the 4th. This team is legit. Hartman is taking Scholes. Nindy is no joke. Love some IB. Go Irish. Again, guys, can we just enjoy how good Jared Parker was today? Let's not forget that last year Notre Dame scored 35 on Navy in the first half. So, did a bad job in the second half. This year staff did a way better job. I mean,
and to Jared Parker's
enjoy that.
Jared Parker's credit, he also had Sam Hartman calling the shots. I mean, look,
definitely
again,
helps.
not taking anything away from Jared Parker. I think his game plan was perfect for this. But he's got different tools to work with.
I'm not trying to take away what Jared Parker did today. I mean, the O-line, that had nothing to do with Sam Hartman. That was this staff getting him ready to go. But it's like we can just enjoy it, right? I mean, can't we just do that a little bit? I mean, the whole game I'm listening to them. the
Charlie
whole
has
game I'm
negative
listening.
bones sometimes, though, man. So
I
let him
guess
be
he's got to
positive
say it.
here, all right? Let him be
Yeah,
positive.
true. But the
There's-
whole game
there's
I'm
love
listening
in
to
there,
every
baby.
time Sam Hartman, he just passed so and so on the all time list. He just passed so and so on the all time list. He just passed so. I mean, we heard that how many times during the
We're
game,
gonna hear
right?
it all year.
All year. Well, Drew Pine's like, hey, Drew Pine, first time he's ever completed 10 passes in it. You know what I mean? It's just like, can we just enjoy the game? Charlie Weiss, the last bell loop. Yo, just want to say this: recruits better realize you will get the ball at Notre Dame if you're a stud like Greathouse, Mr. Vince. We know your son would have landed, would have hit the field goal.
He was standing right next to me when they kicked that. He's like, when they're like, oh, he's gonna try a long field goal, 41 yards. He looks at me, goes, 41 yards. He goes, that's not long. And then of course, he missed it. And he's like,
Yeah.
I'd have hit that.
Well, he missed it way high. I mean, the distance was not the problem for Spencer Shrader.
No.
No.
It was.
Yeah.
It's just. I'm glad my kid's as cocky as he is because I don't know if he can back it up, but I love
Yeah.
the confidence.
Yeah, Mark Coughlin got to get some negativity in here. It says the over underestimate fumble. Sadly, is off to a bad start. Hey, I'm not just joking with Mark. That's not negative. I mean, that's the reality. Aldrich, you cannot do that. You can't
be
put
in
the
the
ball in the
inside
ground.
arm.
But here's the other thing, though, too, guys. That the encouraging thing is you can make that statement to him and say, "Okay, why don't you go ahead and sit over by me for a little bit and think about what you did?" Because you can throw out there Jabron Payne and Darian Price and Jeremiah Love and Devin Ford and say we're still okay.
Oh, that's great.
Then that's the key. That's where you want to be, and that's a great place to be. But he battled, came out second half and ran hard and didn't pout and got himself on pace for 1,000 yards. Because if you look at the numbers he put up today, you do that every game this year, you're going to be over 1,000 yards. He had 95 yards on 16 carries, 5.9 per carry. So, and when you take that, part of that is because he had a 1 yard touchdown run. So, 94 yards on 15 carries is, more indicative of what he did when he wasn't rushing it in from 1 yard. And that's that gets him over to 6 yards a carry. I mean, he's right where he was last year. He's picking up where he left off last year. Yeah. Now you just got to hope that, like last year, when he got taken out for a while because he fumbled, that he does what he did last year, which is he never fumbled the ball again after he got benched in UNLV.
He's a scary guy, man. He's a scary guy.
He is.
He would be a business decision for me as a linebacker.
100%. Bright Irish Boy said, did we have a negative play from scrimmage? They had 2 negative plays in the second half. They had a -1 to Darian Price, and then the last play of the game, the -2 to Chris Tyree, where he muffed the handoff on the jet sweep and didn't. That was a minus. But other than that, there's a couple zeros, but there weren't many negatives in this game, guys. There weren't. Joseph Conady, I just wanted to say I really liked what I've seen today. Greathouse could be the surprise star of this year. Tempered excitement for that previous statement. Yeah, I mean, look, he did really well today. He did. But this is what I love about this unit is, Ryan, we've talked about this before. There may be a chance that nobody has great numbers at receiver this year because they spread the ball around so much. But look, somebody's going to have a 100-yard game in a week or two, and then somebody else is going to have a big game. I mean, that's what I think could make this. We talked about this. There's 2 ways to have a great pass game. One is to have that dude, that big time dude. The other one is just have a bunch of guys that are good football players. So hey, if Tobias is having a big game, these 3-4 guys can pick it up. If Jaden Thomas having a big game, then Tobias, Tyree, and Greathouse can pick him up, and Dion can pick him up. If Tyree's having an off game, you got Greathouse you can rely on. If Greathouse is having a bad game, you got, that's where you want to be, guys. Where if you take Will Fuller out of the game in 2015, that offense was not throwing the ball that much, nearly as effectively. That was the reality of it. And this team it's a little bit harder to do that based on what we saw today. Now we got to see if they can go out and continue that week after week. Trash. Okay. Thank you for that. For the super chat. Great win. Here's to another great year. Thank you for all you do. For a 27 turning 28 on the 31st ND fan. Well, happy early birthday. So Notre Dame gets to go 1-0, give you a nice little 42-3 beatdown birthday present for you. And then I think a couple days after your birthday, they're going to have another blowout victory. I have a feeling next week against Tennessee State. We're going to learn something about this football team next week, guys. We are. We're going to look, Vince, they're going to win next week's game convincingly. The question is, are they going to win it convincingly because they're just way more talented than Tennessee State, or because they actually play well and they're way more talented than Tennessee State? But
I mean, the big question is Steve Angeli ever going to throw an incompletion? We'll find out next week.
Great
that 101 for 2 yards, baby. All right. Tyler Evans. Do you remember? Yeah, it was funny. I'm not even gonna get into that today. I'll tell you guys after the show.
All right.
Tyler Evans with a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. I loved when Navy was in the red zone. Notre Dame refused to let them punch it into the end zone. I actually did I love that. I love that they forced them to. It's like kind of took a bit of a punk's way out. You guys are kicking a field goal down 42-0. Really?
Go for it.
Really? Ken Niumatalolo's not kicking a field goal there, fellas. He's going for 6. Yeah, and then they were calling like timeouts, and it's like, guys, come on, what are we doing here, fellas? No, I love that. I love that they didn't let them put it in the end zone because, guys, it's Navy, right? But to me, that meant something because what was the one thing that was just the defense last year was just it wasn't one thing. The disruptions, right? The things, and then what did that lead to? It led to them being terrible in the red zone. They were a terrible red zone team last season.
Yep.
Well, and they were literally the worst team in college football last year, fellas, when it came to red zone defense, touchdown defense. They literally ranked last in college football last year in opponent red zone conversion rate for touchdowns. They were 129th they were 130th out of 131 teams in total red zone. They only forced 2 red zone stops all year last year.
Good.
They ranked 131st in red zone touchdown rate. They gave up touchdowns on 27 of 34 possessions last year in the red zone. Today, Navy went 1 of 2 in the red zone, 0 of 2 for touchdowns. That's a win. I mean, that's a
huge win.
That tells me that's a mindset thing. Hey, they're working on, guys, we got to be better here. We got to have a plan here. We got to have some pride here. And they were able to make stops. I loved it. John Banco with a super chat. What did you see today that especially gives hope against Ohio State? Honestly, John, for me, I'm not worried about that right now because of I'll say this is what gave me hope. Nothing defensively gives me hope against Ohio State because it's just such a different animal. I mean, you really can't compare it. But offensively, I'll say this. The fact that the offensive line played as well as it did, and they showed a willingness to spread the ball around, and are things that gave me a lot of optimism that this offense can play at an elite level, which is what would then give me optimism to be able to go beat Ohio State. That would it. But defensively, guys, there's nothing that I saw today that translates beyond this week besides just the toughness and the attitude and all that. And, we still got to see that they can execute against a normal offense. I love the foundation from that regard, but schematically, play wise, I mean, I got to see what they do against a real offense. But yeah, so big picture, just the toughness, the flying around, that's great. Offensively, those are the things that I saw. But again, Navy's not Ohio State.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, Ohio State's going to be aggressive as well, but they're going to have guys that are 20, 30 pounds bigger or 2-3 inches taller and a lot faster. So it's a different animal. But it's a great start. It's a great building block to getting that point. You guys have anything else that you'd
No, just the ability to be balanced offense, I think, will be big for Notre Dame in bigger games like that. I feel, again, the predictability offensively in 2022 was at much too high of a level. I think that with Sam Hartman, with the passing game seemingly trending in the way it's going, the run game being already what you knew it was, I think that unpredictability is going to really pay off for Notre Dame in those big games.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just comfortability offensively, new quarterback, new, no Michael Mayer, new coordinate, like all of those different things. I saw some comfort there. I saw some, some things that they can build on, things like that. So if that, it doesn't especially give me hope, but it's definitely a positive moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Got a super sticker down here from Mike Shoot. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that very, very much. This name just makes me laugh, guys. Laura Dern's Jurassic Park shorts.
Wow. It's very specific.
JD Bertrand for Heisman. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate that very, very much. Had another one from Laura Dern's Jurassic Park shorts. Some years you have the cereal and the milk. Do we have the spoon this year? I mean, I kind of get that, right? Like, I've never heard that analogy before, but I kind of like it. I mean, you've got to have that thing that brings it all together. If you have cereal and no milk, it's kind of like one of my favorite scenes, right, Vince, from Friday is what's the keys to having a great cereal? You got to have a bowl, you got to have cereal, you got to have milk, and you have a spoon. And the scene from Friday where, he pours that big old box of cereal in the big old thing. And he's like, he's getting ready to pump it out. And his dad's like, what are you doing? He goes, we ain't got no milk. You put some water on that thing. You know what I mean? It's like, you need all those ingredients. The point is you need all those ingredients, right? It's like, if I'm making bread and I don't have all the ingredients, then it's not going to be very good bread. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, could Sam be that thing that brings it all together? Sure hope so.
Yeah.
Sure hope so. Charlie Weiss last belt loop. Sam got it from the king of Dublin, who is Conor McGregor. Okay. Corey D with a super chat. Thank you, Corey. Sam Hartman makes this the best Notre Dame team since 1993. We know QB play is hugely important, and we haven't. Like, I love that people are this. I mean, I love the optimism, but again, I just want to see it against a little better opponent. I mean, look, I am not someone who's going to say, guys, let's not be excited. It was Navy. But I will say, enjoy this victory, but this victory means that they were dominant over Navy. It doesn't mean that they're going to dominate everybody else 13 games on the way to a national championship. Is it a great start? Yeah, it's a great start. But now you've got to build on it. Because if this is who they are all year, they're going to be pretty good. But it may not be good enough to beat everybody because there's still areas that you've got to do better. Hey, look, if you leave two guys free down the field against Caleb Williams or whoever Ohio State's quarterback is, or Cade Klubnik, or some of the, Brennan Armstrong or guys like that, you're going to give up touchdowns, right? So there's still a lot to build on, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a great performance. Like we can enjoy that, and I'm not going to tamp people's excitement down. I want people to be that excited, but it's a building block, and it's a very impressive building block. Yeah. William Chesney, do you guys think this is a top 5 running back room in the country? Do you think they are without Sam Hartman? Do you think they are without Sam Hartman? No way teams can stack the box going forward against Notre Dame. Ryan, you and I talked about this during the summer, I believe. It's a top 5 running back room talent-wise. They just had to prove it. And I don't know that running on Navy alone does that, but I think it was a great first sign. I mean, Jadarian Price's first career touch goes. 2 guys today's first career touches resulted in touchdowns today. Jaden Greathouse's first career touch was a touchdown, 35 yards. Jadarian Price's first career touch was a touchdown. First carry was a touchdown as well. But, I mean, the talent is there, Ryan. You can bench a guy like Audric Estime for a half because he fumbles the ball, and you don't miss a beat against the number 3 rush defense in the country from last year. Yeah. I'd say they showed today that they have a chance to be that group. They just got to do it week after week.
Right. There's not a lot of groups that are 5 deep like this.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because like the preseason top 5 lists are always funny because it's like, it's only what we know at the moment, right? From a production perspective. But I mean, I was the same way in the preseason that I am now. I don't think there's 5 running back rooms in college football that I would trade from just a depth and talent wise to what Notre Dame has. I just don't think there is. So,
I agree. Now they just got to build on it. And then our last super chat here from Connor Grant. My girlfriend is only a Notre Dame fan because of Marcus Freeman. Anyways, go Irish. Thanks, IB. Connor, I do not think that you're alone.
The guy's a freaking model.
My wife is also a very big fan of Marcus Freeman, Connor. So,
yes.
Yep.
My dad made a comment. He goes, I think that guy lifts more weights than the players because we were talking during the game. I was like, not wrong.
I mean,
not wrong.
There's not much you can put on him with a UA sticker that doesn't look freaking good. You know what I mean? Like it's funny to me how like Notre Dame fans are like, oh man, I want that, and that is so cool. It's like you ain't gonna look like Marcus Freeman, but you can go ahead and buy it. That's cool.
Well, I will say this though, that's the hoodies are a little bit that's why I like the hoodies because those a little bit more.
Vince, I don't know if you've seen How I Met Your Mother, but there's a scene where Barney Stinson can't take a bad picture, and I feel like that's Marcus Freeman. Like
hey guys, my wife does photography for Notre Dame. I can send you a few. That is Marcus Freeman taking a bad picture. Yes. It exists.
I don't believe it. It doesn't exist.
It exists.
I don't believe it.
My favorite picture, actually, and I sent this actually to Coach last summer. There's a picture of his little son, Vince, the one with all the hair.
Mm-hmm.
Came up and like jumped into his arms right before a game, and my wife like has that picture of like right before he's like
nice.
He's coming down. So that was a pretty cool one. But he's taking some bad pictures. We all take bad pictures,
right? But he's got one good-looking family. I mean, there's just no 2 ways about it.
His son's starting for Penn, correct?
He's the only sophomore starting on an all-senior defense.
There you go.
So, and the boy hits like a Mack truck.
Yep. Well, like father, like son.
I
That's
mean,
for sure.
he's a strong safety.
Yeah. Alex Ward with Super Chat. Thank you, Alex. It says this might be the first year in a very long time where the best game plan versus the offense isn't to stack the box. Let's think about that for a second. Huge. And I think you saw that, Alex, to Alex's point, guys. I think we saw that today. Navy tried to load the box early, and Notre Dame was able to this is why you don't just run duo and inside zone at people. You've got to kind of mix it up a little bit. You know, they ran some, I think, wasn't like their second run of the game, might have been their first run of the game was actually a count. Yeah, the first run of the game was a counter. They ran counter and went for 10 yards. Right? It's a throw up. I mean, it's just throw them off. And then the next play, you throw the football, and then you come back to inside zone at them. Yep. You know, they kept them off balance the whole game, guys. But to your point, if you want to sit there and load the box all game,
go for it.
You've got a quarterback and receivers that can make you pay for it.
Right.
I think that's what threw Navy's defense off so early was like I think the first couple runs were counters, right? Or some type of there's definitely
they went back to more inside zone after that, but like they ran counter on the first play run, then they went to 11 personnel and spread it out and threw it on the next play on the outcut to Jaden Greathouse, and then they ran a bubble a couple plays later. I mean, so they ran the slide screen later. I mean, so they mixed it up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, first play was a counter play, and they went right at them, and they were running zone and duo out of different looks, and they were more inside zone, I thought, than they were duo today. At least that's what I could tell. We'll go back in and break it all down later just to be more sure. But, you know, that's kind of what I saw today was more inside zone the duo. And when then they ran duo, it was even more impactful because it just gave them a different look.
Yeah, and they bounced it. If I'm Navy's defensive coaches, like I'm watching the film from last year and I'm just expecting duo and maybe some inside zone spread in, and then all of a sudden you run counter first play, I'm like, oh, snap, son. This isn't great. Yeah.
So snap, son.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an impressive. That part of it was impressive. I think Alex nailed that one. Absolutely. We have another super chat just popped up from Bayside Tiger, and he's now got AC Slater in his avatar, which is hilarious.
He's number 6, baby.
Yeah, my wife is laughing about my comment about some bad Marcus Freeman pictures. So, but Bayside Tiger says, "Thank you for the super chat." It says the game plan seemed to strike a nice balance of using multiple looks, but not getting too caught up in getting the perfect call. Only one delay, no scan. Yeah. When did they get a delay game?
Did they
get a delay game?
They had to call a timeout with like 1 second left.
Yeah, that was second half. Or no, it was that late in the first quarter when they were in that 2-minute offense? When I know what you're talking about.
I just remember it was it ran up to the line with like 3 seconds left, and they were like, "Oh, we got to call a timeout." Like, yeah.
But yeah, they because that's the benefit of the RPO game though, right? Is you don't need to get the perfect play call. You know, get the play called and see what they're doing, and if they are taking something away, you've got something else. But also, I think there's enough trust in Sam Hartman to say, hey, you don't need to get the call from us. You know what to check into if they're going to do this. You're not asking Drew Pine to do that, nor should you have asked Drew Pine to do that last year. He was a first-year starter. I mean, you should have asked Tyler Buckner to do that last year. That's part of it too. We have to think about that. This is a 6th-year senior that's in his 3rd year as a captain, right? He's going to have more experience and knowledge of the game that allows him to say, hey, I don't need to look over to you to get the call. I know when they line up like this and we're running duo into that, we need to check to inside zone away. Right. I mean, I know that, or we need to check to a screen or a check to a something like that. On top of having the RPOs, Vince, it takes a lot of that need to get the perfect call away.
Right. Freeman said that in the post-game interview. I don't know if you heard it or not, but he was basically said, you know, Sam Hartman, he was moving protections. He was getting us in the right play. Like, that's the 6th-year senior stuff that you're talking about. I'm 100%. I mean, that's where he's different. That's why this position is where it's at now with this team. That's why we were so excited about it. They were running the scan offense because they didn't have a quarterback that could do that before. Now they do. They don't have to run the scan offense. Not that they were ever going to do it, but they don't have to. It's not necessary.
Right. Oh, and they did. I mean, there's times he's looking over the sidelines. I mean,
sure.
and that's okay. There's always going to be time and place for that.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about this earlier, but I love the fact that in the first game of the year, Notre Dame got into a 2-minute situation where they were deep in their own territory and only had like a minute 20. How much time was left on that last drive? Let me go find it here.
I think it was like a minute 50 or something.
That drive started with a minute 55.
Yeah.
They were at their own 20. and they went down and scored a touchdown. I thought that was and that was a great route by Jaden Thomas, by the way. The corner post, he stemmed that. It's amazing what good route running can do. Because in the past, what we would have seen is a quick top stick, go to the post, and the DB would have beat him to the spot. But that lean at the top to the corner and then snapping it to the post, that was a great route. Really good route. And then Sam Hartman just threw an absolute dime on that particular play. But I was impressed by that whole series. I mean, it just and this isn't just Sam Hartman. Look, I'm sorry, I don't care how veteran Sam Hartman is. When you get into that 2-minute situation in game one, if you're not prepared as a team, I don't care who your quarterback is. There's going to be a lot of mistakes, right? There's going to be a lot of, I wasn't lined up correctly, false start, or we're running too much time, or guys weren't getting lined up quickly, so we had to use more clock than we thought we should have. So we had to burn timeouts. We didn't see that, guys. Just as an entire unit, they just looked, we got this. Minute 55, plenty of time, to go 80 yards with 2 timeouts. You know what I mean? And I just thought the poise on that drive, even like something little, where like he throws that little check down to Devin Ford. Now, sometimes a running back's going to like turn around and like try to make people miss. And Devin kind of basically just like fell past the first down marker because he's like, look, I just got to get to the sticks. It's a savvy play from a 5th-year senior transfer, where that saved them time because under 2 minutes, clock still stops on a first down. So I know the new rule is like the clock keeps running on the first down, but not under 2 minutes. It's like the NFL. So like even little things like that, Vince, where you just saw this team just play really smooth, poised football, whether it was a 6th-year senior or a freshman. And you're just like, okay, this team was prepared for this game, fellas. Yeah. That's a great sign from a coaching standpoint. Is this team was just ready for whatever Navy threw at them, whatever Navy or the circumstances of the game threw at them. They just never flinched. This is a great phrase Coach Holt used to use all the time. Just don't flinch. They never flinched this game, ever. Faced a 3rd and 10 on the first drive, not in scoring zone, no problem. We got this. 3rd and 12, 3 plays later, still not in field goal range. We got this, no problem. It didn't matter what happened, guys. They just went down the field and just did what they needed to do on both phases of the game. I will say this. I want to see the, special teams. Let's get that figured out here, fellas. Couple not great returns and missing the field goal. But we didn't see them punt today. So, Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see Bryce McPherson today. But
he's got a free trip to Ireland. It's all good.
Yeah, no offense. I wouldn't mind not seeing him for a couple weeks.
Right, exactly.
He's the one guy on your team that you're like never happy to see. It's like no offense to you, buddy. It's just the circumstances.
Yeah, sure you do a great job, but that's not.
Yeah. And then Charlie Weiss's last belt loop, he said Connor was tweeting good things about Notre Dame. Yeah, somebody had said that to me that he was tweeting about how because I guess he has like a pub or something in town and a bunch of Notre Dame fans. I don't know. So he made a lot of money off. I mean, as much money as he probably made off Notre Dame fans this week, I would imagine he was saying good things about Notre Dame fans. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it for this game. Vince, you and I will be back tomorrow at 8:00 p.m. for the Upon Further review, and then of course, Ryan, you'll be back on Monday for a recruiting hour, and then of course we'll get into Tuesday. We'll get into some Tennessee State prep for Tuesday. And we're going to have some fun next week, guys. But Notre Dame is 1-0. The 13th ranked Fighting Irish get the season kicked off with a 42-3 win over Navy. Last time Notre Dame beat Navy this bad, guys, was 2012 in a game in Dublin, Ireland that they won by 40. Today they won by 39. So I'm just saying, just totally just saying. Doesn't mean anything.
Year until the end. All right.
Yep.
So let's rewrite that script a little bit.
Yeah, I have seen, I think people have seen JD Bertrand's girlfriend, so we're all good. We don't have to worry about all that. So we're all good to go. Remember, that's kind of what happened in the last game of the year.
That's right.
All that, yeah. So
it was
anyway, we're not going to end the show on that, guys. We're not going to end the show on that. Notre Dame is 1-0.
Okay, I get it.
42-3 victory, complete dominance over Navy. Outgained Navy by almost 300 yards of offense. Excellent performance. And we'll be back at it. So Vince and I are going to dive into the film and have some fun on this one. But we'll see you all again tomorrow night. Make sure you hit that like button, folks. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Sign up for the message board at boardsonirishbreak.com. And we actually are going to have a new function. A lot of people have asked if they can donate. We're going to have a new function going up on the store about that soon, where you can donate money to Irish Breakdown. And if you donate certain amounts of money, you get some cool stuff to go with it. So you can check that out here. That'll be up probably tomorrow. Anyway, for Vince and Ryan, I'm Brian. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you again very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.